Welcome to the 2018 Draftkings Fantasy Baseball World Championships live from Chelsea Piers in New York City. There's a lot of money up for grabs tonight. Of course, I am Pat Mayo, going to be guiding you through this for the next 2 hours. We're going to be live on DraftKings platforms, on Facebook, on the DK Live app. You're going to want to check all of that out. We'll be breaking down the entire slate as we go, and it's not just going to be me talking about everything. We're going to have a slew of guests coming in and off of set throughout the night to get you prepared. Let me introduce the first crowd right now. Maria Marino down at the end. How's it going?
It's great. This is awesome. I'm so excited. I've never been to an event like this, and it's pretty amazing so far.
A lot of money on the line tonight.
A lot of money on the line, and everyone's winning something,
Yeah,
so that helps.
hey, we're already winning that someone is watching, so we're good to go.
Hashtag winning.
So the DraftKings analysts right now, Steve Buchanan is here, Alex Jankowski is here. You guys ready for this?
Yeah, I'm not going to sniff any of that money, but I'm still excited. You know, you wake up and it just seems a little different. You're already starting to get the atmosphere going in here. Some of the run-throughs we had just even, and now as people start to filter in, and it's an interesting slate, I guess it would be my best way to describe it, to start at least. And we'll dive more into that, of course, but just awesome to be here. Great.
And I'll tell you what I've won is just being in the company of you three. I mean, that's a win right there. I mean,
this is what your
Sorry,
dreams are
Gary,
made of.
your charm is immune to me. All right. So here's the big thing tonight. The actual World Championship slate is just a 6-game slate, but we'll be talking about the main 10-game slate starting just after 7 o'clock. So just first off the hop, Alex, what do you think the difference is between just narrowing down to 6 games? Like, would that change your strategy between 6 and, 10?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different ways you have to look at this, and now you eliminate Coors Field on the bat side. You also eliminate Aaron Nola from the pitching side, so the top tier of pitching in this 6-game slate, very slim. But the overall strategy as well, if you're just playing the 10-game slate tonight against pretty much everybody else, but here you're playing against the best of the best. So what you think might be contrarian in the 6-game slate might actually be the most popular play tonight. You have to try to see how you can outsmart the other player.
Do you think that there's going to be much research going on between the players, almost the inception level of thinking about this? Like, hey, I'm going to go into this. I need to be somewhat contrarian, but I know everyone else is going to be contrarian, so I'll go anti-contrarian. This is what I'll do. Or is that just too much thinking?
Reverse psychology going on.
I mean, this is one of those things, too, that once you eliminate those 4 other games, I mean, like Alex was saying, the ownership just shrinks down immensely because there's obviously not as much of a selection as you used to have now. And he mentioned especially about the pitching options. I mean, there's a top heavy with Bauer and Morton up there. Those are going to be the 2 guys that are going to be popular, but then what do you do after that? So I feel like the SP1 is going to be fairly across the board is going to be what people are going to be looking at, but then below that is where we can start seeing some of that ownership change.
And it also depends, some people here qualified 4 lineups, some only have 1. So how YOLO are you looking to go with your maybe 1 lineup, or are you just going to go your more traditional cash game lineup and then those who have 4 can maybe go 3 a little bit more traditional, 1 where they really want to go off the board.
That was clever, Alex. How YOLO can you go?
I mean,
I'm going to use
in
that.
fairness, I saw him practicing it for 2 hours.
In front of the mirror.
I should
really
have
nailed
known.
the delivery.
I thought I locked the door, but I did not.
No. We got cameras everywhere around here because it's the DraftKings Fantasy Baseball World Championships covering the entire night. We're gonna be coming back after it's over to talk to the winners, to break down the slate, and we got everything covered. If people want to get in, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a fun night, I think.
No, it's gonna be a great night.
And someone's gonna win life-changing money.
Yeah, a couple people are going to win life-changing money. I mean, you look at the payout structure, I don't think anyone's really going to be too sad with where they finish.
So the key is, I think, what we need to do is start walking around after it starts, become friends with who we think who's currently in the lead, and be like,
That's a great idea.
And then a home run comes, and we're like, all right, well,
Hey,
it's nice
we're not
talking.
friends
Great to meet you.
Let's see if my charm can work on anybody in the room. Anybody.
No,
I'll
take the under on that.
Okay, fine, fair enough.
Oh, come on. Be nice. I think it's working. It's working already.
It's working on her.
He
fine
started
with me.
right away with the flattery, buttering us up, saying he's happy to be in our presence, so it helps.
Twitter follower list going up and up.
There it is, all about the brand.
All right, so again, if people want to follow along for when the slate actually starts, if you just tune into the DraftKings Twitter account, they'll be sending out links where you can follow along with the Fantasy Baseball World Championship. All night, sweat it along with you, even if you're not invested. Why wouldn't you want to check this out? It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be showing stuff, doing clips and videos during the event. You can see people legit real life sweating. It's going to be hot, and there's a lot of money on the line. It's going to be tough. But I want to know, what are we looking at tonight going in? Do we have weather concerns? Is there going to be giant narratives at play that you think people are going to attack?
We do have to touch on the weather, especially out in Baltimore, because they're playing the doubleheader tonight. But the way that the weather's looking between 8, 11 o'clock, we'll see if anything changes as we go, is going to make a big difference, because I think we already saw Moreland and Benintendi not in the Red Sox lineup. Yep. So that opens up some value there that you don't usually get at the top of that Red Sox order going up against a 4K pitcher in Baltimore. Right. So it's going to be somewhere you want to target, but you have to be wary of the weather, because if they end up, obviously canceling the game, you're stuck with a couple goose eggs there.
And like we mentioned too, with Coors not on this field, well, who's the next best team to stack? It's the Red Sox. But now with that influx, it changes the strategy so much now, because they have those prolific hitters. They have Mookie Betts. They have JD Martinez. And now, especially if you're just like a one entry here, do you take the chance with those guys? Because the ownership could be really low now. But if that game doesn't get in, that's a big goose egg on your lineup.
Well, how do you think you would play it? Like, Maria, if it was you have one lineup in this. Would you play for first? Like, if you're not first, you're last. Take the Ricky Bobby mentality.
Always, you got to go big or go home. Like, I know, Pat, how I would play this lineup. I'm just kind of, admiring these guys.
But it's one of the things, like, how do you, like, obviously to get one of these seats in the first place, you had to win a pretty large-scale tournament. I mean, some people won, like, a $5 entry. They qualified and beat thousands of people. Other people, they knocked out 80 people during the course of a night and still ended up in first to get here. That you almost sort of have to have that YOLO mentality. Like, I'm playing to win. If I'm not playing to win,
I would also think whatever got them here is what they should use moving forward.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think, especially it's still, it's a smaller tournament, of course, but you still have to have that bigger scale mentality. And just play your game, I guess you could say, and just stick with that research, trust your numbers, and go from there.
And you have to think, too, this field is full of sharp people here. I mean, this is not like your regular tournament. This is an event where the best of the best are here, and that's why they're here, because they were able to make those lineups to get to this point. So there's going to be a lot of sharp people here, so you also have to take that in consideration as well.
I was talking to a few of the qualifiers last night, and they were talking to me about the different systems they have in place, how they analyze projections, and I felt like I was in remedial math class. I was like, I don't understand any of this. Like, this is why you guys are here, and I'm the one talking about it.
They're the experts.
It's amazing how much work goes into this.
But what's so funny about that, this is one night, and this is one slate for all these baseball teams, one game of 162, where this game may be nothing for how
Do you think the players know that there's a lot on the line here tonight?
I am sure
they do not. When they're up at the plate, like
that's,
we're seeing it in all of these other sports, like the theory of pressure. Does it get to anyone? And they're like, hey, I could win someone a ton of money tonight.
But where we are in this time of year, too, you have to look at where these teams are in the standings. Some are playing for a wild card spot, so their starting pitcher has a shorter leash, and you have to think about that. Some are trying to get younger guys more looks now because their seasons are over. You have to find that value there. So they're not thinking about us, but we have to think about them in terms of what their mentality is.
So you have to project out how they're feeling. That's tough to do.
You know what I was thinking? Anytime I've ever played daily fantasy anything, I could have $2 on the line, and I'm like really agonizing over a specific decision, and then you always have the fear of the overthink, right? You're just overthinking it, and then it ends up biting you. You make the wrong call. Like, that would kill me. And like tonight, with so much on the line, it's even more palpable.
Yeah, how much tinkering is going on, right? We're under 2 hours from the start.
We should have had like the live tinker cast. We put everyone in a room. People were just stressing out, and like one guy trying to see who's playing in someone else's line. People go, no, can't do that.
We heard from someone who set their lineup last night and hasn't looked at it since.
He hasn't looked at it since. I think that's the move.
I think
that's the move. Don't overthink it.
Well, yeah, because sometimes the obvious choice is the right choice. Am I right?
Definitely.
So more narratives to talk about on this slate. Like, I think this weather game is really intriguing. Like, what do you think the potential is that we don't get a game?
I'm no meteorologist, but
throw out a percentage. You're a
professional. Yes, you are.
It sounds like we're getting. We're not at 50% or anything like that, but it sounds like a severe delay could be coming, and that almost wipes out any of the pitching options in that game because when they come back, likely you're not going with the starter, and then you're sweating. Yeah, you're sweating those 3 hours as the tarp's on the field. We're all going to be here, watching this game if this delay happens and waiting. You have to make a lot of decisions there because especially if you're paying up, and I mentioned the value as well, the Red Sox are just in a great spot tonight.
And the other thing I think that's interesting too is that this is part of a makeup already. So we've already had a rain out, so they're playing the second game of a doubleheader. They don't want to keep getting into this where they have so many games they have to make up. I don't know how much that's going to go into the factor, but I feel like that is part of it there too as well.
Well, the maximum amount of entries that you can have in the Draftkings Fantasy Baseball World Championship is 4. So if you were one of the guys with 4 teams, would you roll the dice on the Red Sox stack?
Absolutely.
At least in one of them. Yes.
Absolutely.
I think you have to. I think you have those options to go with. You're talking about a 6-game slate also, so
and they're probably the best offense on the slate.
I would definitely
By
say
far.
Yeah, they're the best offense in Major League Baseball. So
right.
most definitely. So, and they're in a good ballpark also in Baltimore, going up against a bad pitcher. So when you're putting together your player pool there's definitely going to be a couple guys that you're going to bring in all 4 of your lineups because you don't want to spread yourself way too thin. But for your main stack, I think for one, you can fit some Red Sox, and certainly on the lower tier. But the way with the pitching, we talked about Bauer and Morton. If you want to go down to Flaherty maybe as your SP1, that will allow you to get Mookie Betts or JD Martinez into your lineup comfortably, and you still have plenty to go from there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Alex with the thunder right here. Like, he slammed it right
I'll
here.
keep it here. I won't bring it to
He's
Baltimore.
going to keep buttering up each of us. Watch. It's just going to be a
I'm
compliment.
just saying. No, I mean, Alex just hit every good point that I was going to hit on here. I mean, he's totally right. I mean, if you were lucky enough to have 4 entries into this, you absolutely have the wiggle room to take some chances here because that's likely what got them in here. You're usually trying to beat out these big fields of people just to get here to begin with. So if you have 4 entries here and the field is so much smaller, absolutely.
All right, so it's not just us, the 4 of us, sitting around. I mean, Maria and I will be back. Adam Levitan will be joining us here in a moment, but we need to take people behind the scenes to see what the qualifiers are up to. So we got sights and sounds from the qualifiers welcome party Thursday from the Dream Hotel live from here in New York City. Check it out. How are we going to...
It's a fantasy player's dream come true, and since the minute we've got here, it's been over the top.
First class.
Hell yeah, it's always exciting. And DraftKings is basically paying me to have a vacation. Like, I can't complain about that at all.
I think whenever there's millions of dollars on the line, you always get a little excited. So yeah, it's definitely still exciting.
It's definitely not nerve-wracking, but it is very exciting. I always look forward to these events and even just the reception and meeting new people that I've never met.
Well, at this point, you come across a lot of the people in the industry, and it's more about the camaraderie and seeing everyone together more than the actual contest itself. You'll see at these games that people are very intense, but it's never you're never opposed to another person in the room because you just know it's out of your hands. I think that's what makes these events good. And to put a face to all the names you see, just a bonus.
It's just crazy. Him and we're both police officers in Miami, and we do this for fun. And looking around the room here, we see the who's who in fantasy baseball, and it's like, wait a second, we don't belong in this group, but we're gonna give it our best and see what happens, So, like my dad says, a blind squirrel finds a nut. So
We'll see if the glass slipper fits.
Because the first live final I was at, I did so poorly, and I was a wreck. I didn't have fun. The event and things were fun, but my mentality was so poor that after that I said, if I ever get to another one of these, I'm going to have a better attitude. And every other one I've gone into it saying, I'm planning on getting last, and anything more than that is gravy, and I'm going to enjoy it.
I don't want to stress over too much, and I'm just here to have a good time, and if it works out, it does. We're all winners anyway, so we'll just let it ride.
It's just one day, so I'm just going to let the chips fall.
hey, we're gonna have a good time. The one thing for sure, we can't get 136th place or worse.
I want to pay attention, but I'm going to try not to take too much of it. I'm in New York City. I'm enjoying myself. I'm getting a drink, and, DraftKings is paying for it, so
Can't beat it.
can't beat it.
I tell my buddies, oh, this is a business trip. They're like, oh, have fun at the event, have a nice vacation. Nope, it's a business trip. I want to take down one of these titles.
coming tonight will look like me, not you.
No, of course. Well, they always say that, at first impression, the guy wearing the suit, he's the guy who must have all the money. No, he's the guy who works for the guy wearing shorts and a T-shirt.
Well, you also tried very hard to, look spiffy tonight,
No,
I
you
feel.
can't tell people I'm trying hard. It's got to be like
I'm
this.
just
This is
kidding.
what
You
just
woke up like this.
I woke up, just rolled out of bed, and this is what I looked like.
We confirm there's no big check, but the reason you're dressed up is because you will be making the trophy presentation, correct?
True.
Yeah, there's a belt, there's a trophy, there's some bats. I mean, if I really want to get
Big
sneaky,
time.
I got a bat in my hand. Take off the money. If I was a better swimmer, I'd just jump in the river and take off, but I'd just drown. It'd be bad news for me.
Boy.
I bet you it's cold in there, too, even though it's the
I
summertime.
would think so.
All right, so how many of these have you been to? I've been to 2 of these, not as a participant, because I'm awful.
This is my first one.
I come up, I show up, I see what's going on. You've
Yeah.
been to a few, too, right?
Yeah, I've been to a few. I think a lot of this, for a lot of the guys, people don't understand, like, the money is one thing, but the experience is another. And there's just, like, in life, money would come and go, but experiences are something that I think you can hang on to for a long time. And we talk about that on the edge all the time, that having an experience means a lot more. So I think that the experience here is actually legit awesome, and I tell people all the time, if you're playing for the qualifier, it's not good for your bankroll, it's not good for your ROI most likely, because it's really hard to get here.
But if you
do, the experience is awesome, and it's just a life experience you would never have again. So
That's
to that point, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Some deep advice right there. I like it. Some life advice.
Yeah. Oh, we always go deep. Yeah, on the edge. For
But
sure.
you obviously understand the mindset of a qualifier.
Sure.
Can you expand on that and kind of what's going through their heads right now?
Yeah. I think for a lot of these guys, they view one slate as one slate. Like when you play all the time, one slate is one slate. Anybody could do really well. Anybody could do really poorly. Whoever wins tonight doesn't mean he's the best possible fantasy baseball player in the history of the world.
Exactly.
He was the best on one slate. And how many slates were there to be tonight? A lot of these guys play every slate. They play the main slate, they play the late slate, they play the showdown
do you think
slate.
they're all still playing all the different
Probably.
slates tonight?
Yeah, probably.
It's like any other day.
Like any other day, exactly. So a lot of these guys, it's just one slate, and they understand that not to put too much emphasis when you do this every day or you do it for a living, that you're not going to put too much emphasis on one slate.
But yeah, I mean, this one feels like you said.
But this
with
one,
the experience, it feels like a big deal.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a big deal, and there's not usually 500K up top for 135 entries. So from that perspective, you would put more emphasis on this one, and yeah, just try to do your best.
So by that logic, you're a proponent of sticking to your routine, not going too far out of the box for this event.
Yeah, I think it's unique in that a lot of the fields that these guys compete against aren't this small, aren't 135 entries. And I believe there's only 85 unique entries. So from that perspective, it is a little bit different than what you would see on a normal day when there are a ton of entries in the field, or even in some of the higher stakes stuff in the 300 or in the 1K or whatever. There's even more people. So yeah, from that perspective, I do think it makes sense to change your strategy slightly, but not to put pressure on yourself and do something crazy, just to be aware of the payouts, which are actually pretty flat. We've seen very steep payouts in DFS and on DK, but this is, I believe, 500K to first, 350 to second, 250 to third, and that makes a big difference too in terms of how steep and how flat the payouts are for your strategy.
If you were in this and you had like the lead up to it, would you start playing some of these smaller field tournaments, like basically 100-person tournaments, just to get used to the format?
Practice.
Yeah,
and I think you can do some testing too. You can obviously always download the results of every tournament. You can see what works in this size field. So yeah, I think anybody who's trying really hard is doing everything they can to try to get there. Yeah.
But even you talked about like some of these guys might be playing like two showdown slates, be in the World Championship, then play the late slate.
Yep.
If things go wrong during this one, they don't do well. Maybe they can win it all back on the late slate. Who knows? But like, if that was your process every day, I think it would make sense to keep doing it.
Yeah. I don't think you'd want to get too far out of your routine, but I would encourage people to enjoy the experience, right? Not be like, oh, I got to sweat my showdown team. I would personally encourage people to enjoy the experience, but maybe they're not.
Well, is there any NFL tonight that they can get it on?
Yes, 2-game preseason.
I'm sure there's
slate.
always something they can get it on.
2-game preseason slate tonight. Yes.
So that's where you're still all over.
Yeah, I was actually going to take tonight off and enjoy it.
But you're
enjoy
not.
Tonight.
See, you're talking about enjoying the night, and you're like, yeah, I can't take it off.
But
I'm thinking about it.
You're having fun though. Come on.
Yeah, no, this is great for sure.
And there are also some people with multiple entries. So how do you approach that? Are you a fan of like you're going to throw out a different lineup for each case? Is there a lineup that you feel really good about and maybe use it twice because maybe you might end up winning more money in the end?
Yeah. So using it twice would for sure be a no-no, just because there's so much money up
Okay.
top. You know, you don't want to.
Yeah, but if you win, you win first and second.
There you go.
Yeah, that would be
Too risky.
Yeah, that would be way too risky. Yeah, I think that one thing that you benefit by having more than one entry is you don't have this like fear of missing out, or if decisions are close, you know, you like one stack and then there's another stack. You don't have this fear like, man, it's so close. You know, this is a 52-48 decision.
Right.
I'm just gonna go with one. You know, I only have one entry. I can only go with one. All
True.
those spots you get to keep diversifying and keep diversifying. And if you have 3, you get to diversify more, and then 4, you get to diversify more, so that you're, you know, we all have so many regrets. You know, it's just
Exactly.
and when this is over, the guys with one entry, you'd be like, oh, if I only did this, and the guys with 2
Right.
entries were like, oh, I was able to do that, and with 3, they were like, I was able to do that and that. So.
Well, the big thing there's like the Red Sox could potentially be rained out.
Yep.
So yeah, I guess it would make no sense if you had the one entry to kind of stake on that. But if
Yeah.
you had one of the 4 entries, would you burn one on that game knowing no one's going to play it?
So first of all, on weather, I think the best guys that are really awesome at baseball have like a deeper understanding of weather than like go on their app on their phone and like see that the weather is there, right? Like if you are good at predicting weather and you understand scheduling with some of these teams, do they have to play it tonight? Can they play later? There's like definitely a skill with the weather.
You gotta like go to meteorology school to get an edge on these guys.
It's one of the reasons baseball just drives me crazy. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's big. But yeah, from what you said, I totally agree that with one entry, I think playing the Boston game, from what I've seen from the weather, would look like a mistake.
Yeah, like it would just be one of these things where if it was 2 crappy teams,
Yeah.
you could just completely avoid
Right.
it. But you get access to like the 3
best team.
slaters
Yeah.
on the plate,
Right.
or on the slate. Like it. I think I would have to do it. Although this is also why I'm not in it. Because I'd be like, you know what? I'll put all 4 entries in it.
Right.
And if they go off, I'll win everything. But like, if you're gonna build, like you talked about stacking, you can do like 2 mini stacks as a part of one entry. But like, would you still concentrate somewhat of a core across 4 lineups? Like, if you had 4 lineups, would you play any one guy on all 4 teams?
Yeah, I think you would if you really liked him. It would depend what your projection said. But on such a small slate, if we take out that Boston game, there's only 5 games left. It's gonna be very clear cut who the couple best players are. But yeah, there's also you know, with stacking, like there's a lot of stuff that would show that it's almost mathematically correct almost always in a field like this, if you want to get first place, that you should play 5 guys from the same team, right? But that is going to lead to a lot more variance. And so for people who don't want that, you might be able to play a smaller stack or play a couple mini stacks. So yeah, some of it is your tolerance too. But if you were just playing from like a raw math perspective, I would say, and you want to get first place, that playing a full stack would make sense.
Or you could kind of go along with what you were saying before, because, and I really related to this, like when you are agonizing over a specific decision,
Yep.
and you know you're between this, and then if you have the luxury of having more than one entry, just to be able to not think about making that
Sleep at
decision
night,
and
yeah.
just go one here, boom, like
Yeah.
just base it on that.
Exactly, and you'd be able to sleep at night. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's really hard to get one entry to this, let alone 2 or 3 or 4.
That's
so yeah,
true.
and those
That's
guys earned
true.
it. Those guys earned it for sure. Who got more than one, and they'll hopefully for
Take
them reap the
advantage.
benefits. Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you think that, I mean, if you qualify for something like this, obviously you're here to win the big prize.
Yes.
But there's also a lot of money guaranteed in total.
Yes.
Would there be a possibility, like, if you're, like, even had 2 lineups, that you would play one basically, like Jankowski was saying, like one YOLO lineup and one basically cash game lineup to secure yourself a cash and then go for the top prize, too?
So everybody here has already secured 10K. I believe you need to get top 90 to get the next pay jump. Yeah, I don't think a YOLO lineup makes sense in a field this small.
Oh,
you know,
man.
yeah.
Can I just say the how YOLO can you go line one more time? I'm just gonna start.
Listen, this show would have been, like, really cutting edge in, like, 2014.
Yeah, like I would play a
Doesn't get
more
old.
high floor lineup on a field this size. I think going like full YOLO with like guys that are 7-8 in the order, 6-7-8 in the order would not make a lot of sense to me, just because the field is not that big where you would have to go that crazy.
But because the field is so small, like, obviously there probably won't be any duplicated lineups because it's baseball, and it's just harder to do in that format. But with so few games on the slate, there's going to be concentrated shots.
Yeah.
Like, there might be someone who's 80% owned on this slate.
I think, yeah, that's one of the problems with the slate for sure. Five games is incredibly small, yeah.
So what do you do in that situation? Do you just eat the chalk and take the 80% guy? If you have the one lineup, like, you can't really go against it?
One
if
thing,
that's the play?
one thing we talked about with Osimo yesterday on the podcast was that like projecting ownership in the live final can be harder than projecting ownership on a normal slate because everybody's leveling themselves, right? Everybody knows some of these guys' tendencies. I think there will be clear-cut options that people like. I know for sure people like some of the expensive pitchers on this slate. I'm sure people like Trevor Bauer. I think those guys will be expensive. But man, in the live final, it's like so different than projecting ownership in something like the Millie Maker. Like for the golf Millie Maker, I think you could project pretty well where the ownership is going to go. For the golf live final, it might be way harder because people are so much sharper. They're thinking, they're leveling and stuff like that.
And they're doing the different levels of thinking. Like, well, if he's going to be chalk, maybe he won't end up being chalk because everyone thinks he's chalk.
Exactly.
That whole move. But you talked to Osimo yesterday on your show. He has 4 entries in this, and people can go download that on iTunes and everywhere, the audio version, or just go to the DraftKings YouTube page. Check it out. That was a great interview. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, Osimo clearly is like a deep thinker about the game, and a lot of these guys that have 4 entries are not just concentrating on projections. I think a lot of people who get caught up in this is like, who's the best play? How many exactly points is he going to score? And that's not really the exact strategy for tournaments. He talked about how the exact strategy is something beyond that with ownership and tendencies and stuff like that.
Yeah, can you juxtapose that to your friend who is also in this?
Yeah, my friend is probably the biggest underdog in the field. I was just saying. Yeah, there's 80-something unique entries. I would say if somebody was making odds on this tournament, he would probably be the biggest dog in the field, or one of them. I don't know exactly. Everybody's here, but yeah, he has a very unique style, which I can't reveal because other people might be watching.
Clearly,
he has a very unique style, and I'm praying that he wins it because he already promised that if he wins it, we're taking a helicopter back to Philly. So
you spend all the money on the helicopter.
One helicopter ride, $500K. Yes.
How do you think he's feeling?
He's fine. He's not feeling
Just a day in the life.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right, so you can check out that interview, all the work that we've done here in New York City up on the DraftKings YouTube page.
Yes.
You can download the DFS Edge. Adam Levitan, thanks for being here, man.
Thank you for having me. Thanks,
Adam.
And enjoy the rest of the show.
We will. And all the qualifiers last night played a separate competition at Yankee Stadium in terms of the showdown slate. The winner got $10,000, but they weren't the only people there. You know who else was there? David Wells. Check it out.
With a guy who probably doesn't need any introduction, David Wells, 21 years in the major leagues, and of course, pretty popular guy around these parts. We're here at Yankee Stadium. Everyone's excited about the Fantasy Baseball World Championships. You pitched in the playoffs a million times. You won 2 World Series. These people here are qualifiers for the Fantasy Baseball World Championships. This is their World Series. They're trying to win this thing tomorrow. Mentally, what do you think's going through their heads just as the competitors going out and trying to set the best possible lineups?
Well, obviously luck has to do with it, and who they're going to pick, who's pitching, and is he going to be good that night. So to me, it's probably the same effect, because when there's a lot of money on the line and you got a chance to win $500,000, $1 million, whatever it may be, you get nervous regardless. I mean, I've played poker before, and I'm sitting on I'm 4 of a kind. And I'm like, I can't hold a poker face. I'm like, people are dropping like flies because they can read your face.
Right.
It's the same thing. So the nerves are going because you have an opportunity to cash in. If you're going to cash in, you got to hold your composure.
Fantasy sports, in your day wasn't obviously what it is now.
Right.
Can you imagine, especially daily fantasy, just the concept, the idea of, okay, people are rostering you, you're pitching that day, they're depending, their fortunes for that particular day are dependent upon how you go out and pitch on that night, how the matchup is, what the weather is, the opponent, whatever the heck it is. Is that something that, would you like that as an athlete? Would it bother you having to hear about people's fantasy teams?
No, I mean, I got to go out and do my job. So, I mean, in order for me to get a paycheck, I got to be consistent on the winning side and all that, but at least keeping my team in the ball game. And, if they were going to bet on me, if I went to bed early, bet big that I'm going to lose. If I went out all night, bet big that I'm going to win.
Yeah, but how do we know? Those recaps out there?
Well, you'd be surprised how many people follow you around. So
well, that's true. 2 best teams in baseball right now, Red Sox and Yankees. You know that. It's crazy to think about, obviously, that they're on the collision course they might be for the playoffs. You have the unique pleasure, I think, of pitching in both cities. You had obviously success in both places. Your heart has always been in New York, if I'm not wrong about that. But
that's true. I grew up a Yankee fan and a Padre fan. Because our Padres can't do anything. That's what sucks. So if you're betting against them, you're gonna win a lot of money.
So who do you think, who's got the best shot this year to win the World Series between these teams?
If you look at it right now, it's Boston, because they can't lose. They're on fire. But when you get into the playoffs, it just everything changes. Mm-hmm. It's a clean slate, and you never know what's going to happen. The worst team, and that makes the playoffs, has an opportunity, because anything can happen in that. And I've been a firm believer. In '97, we had an awesome team with the Yankees, and we got beat by Cleveland. And Cleveland was good, but we didn't think they were as good as we were, and they beat us. And then the Miami Marlins ended up winning the World Series that year. So anything can happen. I don't care how good you are. Just win as many games, get to that point, and then do that, because you never know what's going to happen. You can get beat by the worst team.
David Wells, that was great.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good luck to you guys.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
World Championship 2018. Maria Marino here, along with Pat Mayo, and Gary Thorne is here. Welcome,
Hey.
buddy. DK Live contributor. How you doing?
I'm doing well. It's an exciting time. I wish I had a lineup. I'll say that much. I'm too scared to actually play a lineup elsewhere and then
Oh,
compare
yeah?
the two. So yeah, it's an interesting time.
But
now.
you have some lineups formulated that you would play, correct?
We've been trying to figure out what a couple lineups would look like. Yeah, see where you can fit some pieces in. I know Levy was talking about Trevor Bauer. It's quite the task to get some bats in there if you like Trevor Bauer as much as I do tonight. But there are some avenues.
So just a quick question, because we've been asking this to everybody. If you had more than one lineup, would you take a shot at the Red Sox game?
Well, actually, I think we have to address this because it's changing drastically right now. It's a lot more
boy.
optimistic than it was even half an hour ago.
Breaking news.
That's good for our end time tonight.
Well, there you go. That is great for our end time tonight. I mean, initially it started off. I think we had a 70% chance of precipitation.
Well, it has a 100% chance of participation
That's-
if it does go.
If it does go, that is true. That was around, I want to say, like 2 o'clock. It was down to about 60% about an hour ago, and now we're under 40%. From 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock, just a 35 to 40% chance. So it seems like this is going to get in.
So
I mean, a lot of the meteorologists are optimistic.
We're in a coin flip situation to see if they play the game on time or not.
I
It's
think they're
almost
gonna.
what we're
I
in.
think they're gonna start it. Like the rain wasn't supposed to hit till 8 o'clock, so I think that even. I mean, I'm not part of the MLB office, but
You're not?
I would assume if the
Why are
game's
you here?
underway. Well, I mean, I apologize for these things, but I assume if the game's underway, they're probably a little pot committed to finishing it. So I would even say at this point, I mean, we've been saying 5-game slate. I think it's
Gonna
time
be
again to
6?
consider this a 6-game slate.
Well, is there something we can do? Be like, hey, well, what if the Red Sox are up by like 6 after 5, and they just call it?
I
do we
don't
call,
think
do
they're
we
going
call it
to.
a 5.5 game slate?
Sure. If you want to take the middle ground approach, if you want to be a fence sitter, Pat.
I'm just saying. I'm weighing all the possibilities
Options.
here.
Well, I think the interesting thing is that really when it comes to these rain-delayed games where the rain might hit in the 3rd or the 4th or the 5th inning, we always worry about starting pitching.
Exactly.
There is no reason anyone would want to touch the starting pitching in this contest. I mean, not only is Velasquez, probably only going to throw 2 innings. He's clearly on a pitch count. This is an emergency start situation at the most. But Jeffrey Ramirez, there's a reason he's the lowest priced pitcher on this slate.
How dare you? You were the guy like 2 days ago who said like Ivan Nova's the play, and he was the play.
Yeah, if Ivan Nova was playing Boston, I probably wouldn't be that into it.
No, super contrarian then.
Well, I mean, look, there's a
Calling him out.
There's a reason to get anyone in the lineup, technically speaking. Yes, Ramirez would be a contrarian play. He's gonna have some low ownership tonight.
If you're one of the contestants, are you ever watching the weather more than you are right now?
Probably not. I mean, the amount it's changed because again,
Yeah.
there was like flash flooding in Baltimore this morning, so it's changed significantly.
Did anyone else get that alert on their phone this
Yes,
morning?
it was
Like the
super
emergency?
loud.
Yes, woke me up.
I didn't
Thanks.
like it.
Thanks for that.
Not a
Nothing
fan.
wakes me up.
Not
I
a
just
fan.
sleep. You got stats though.
I do have stats.
'Cause you do like stats. The glasses would indicate that you love stats.
Stats glasses.
So let's hear 'em.
yes.
Yeah, I hear you have specifically stats for us to watch out for and certain players that it could correlate with.
And potentially a guarantee.
I don't know if we're gonna have a Gary on T. We'll see. We might have a Gary on T.
Love
Stat
it.
number 1, we've already kind of dived into. I mean, initially it was 64 to 70%. Now it is 34 to 39%. That is the chance of precipitation
big change in
during
percent.
that Baltimore-Boston game. And again, the reason for this, I don't think we should have to point this out necessarily, is the run total in this game is not only the highest on the slate. It's 10.5. But the difference between that and essentially every other game, Atlanta and Milwaukee is also a high total at 9.5. But then it drops down to essentially 7.5 or 8 for every other game. So this is the run total game. And even Baltimore, I mean, these numbers have changed slightly considering they were shut out this afternoon, but they came into today over the last 14 days with the second highest WRC plus in baseball, trailing only Boston. So this was and this could be, if we get it in, a very high scoring game. And like I said, now that we've got a situation where it's probably more likely than not going to get in, I feel like, again, we don't have to necessarily say people with a single entry into this contest can't touch this game anymore.
Yeah, and this is the game you want to get in. You want this game played.
I mean, it is interesting. You look at Ramirez specifically, and Boston does have the benefit of being a very right-handed heavy, right-handed power-hitting lineup, so maybe this won't affect them too much because he's just not that great in general. We don't necessarily have to look at the splits, but lefties have hit him very well, and their WOBA is quite good against him, but WOBA can sometimes lie to you in these scenarios because...
What? No, stats don't lie. I heard that.
Fair. Stats tell different truths, let's say.
That's true.
The reason his WOBA is so high against lefties is he walks nearly 8 of them per 9 innings. We don't want walks. We don't want lefties who are going to walk twice. Like Brock Holt's hitting second tonight. I don't want Brock Holt walking. I need some hits here. I need some actual points. So be careful with those lefty Boston bats. Not that there's a ton of them, because Ramirez might just walk them all.
All right, number 2.
Number 2, let's talk about Seattle's strikeout rate. 17.3% across the last 30 days.
Is that high or low?
That's low. It's
Okay.
exceedingly low.
So
It's actually the second lowest total in all of baseball.
So they've devolved into that year the Royals won the World Series where they're just hitting singles everywhere?
Well, it needs to be mentioned because they've been so bad, Seattle, for about the last 45 days now. And while their, WRC plus, their WOBA, their isolated power is terrible across this 30-day span, they still just don't strike out. And strikeouts are such a key to DFS, and specifically the game of Charlie Morton. And for Morton as well, I mean, Morton's 11-5 on this slate. I kind of think he's going to be the forgotten man between Jack Flaherty and between Trevor Bauer. So you could get him at low ownership. He's got a high ceiling. You often like that combination. The problem is he doesn't really line up well with Seattle, aside from the strikeout thing in general, but with how they actually maintain a rate that low. They are exceedingly good at zone contact, 88.3% zone contact percentage, which, essentially means they just are able to make contact with pitches in the strike zone.
They swing at strikes and put the barrel on them?
Exactly. And
that's good baseball right
for
there.
Someone as wild and someone has the reputation of Morton as being sporadic, he actually has a very high zone percentage, or a league average zone percentage for a pitcher. He doesn't rely on outside the zone chase rate to get his strikeouts. He relies on being able to get those swings and misses in the strike zone. Seattle does not do that. So for some people out there tonight, even on the 10-game slate, where you add in like an Aaron Nola and it does change things up a little bit in terms of your options at the higher end of the slate, I wouldn't be going after Charlie Morton, even though he's probably going to be the lowest owned of these top-tier guys.
Interesting. The stats, I like the stats that tell your truth, Garion. I trust your truth.
Are you living your truth?
I hope.
You got woke and now you're living your truth.
Well, we're in New York. I spent some time in Brooklyn. I got real woke. I'm living my truth. It's fantastic.
That's amazing.
So we need some more. What more truth are you projecting onto your third stat?
Let's talk about Jack Flaherty and his 24.25 whiff rate on his slider. Flaherty has been fantastic across his last 5 starts. He's got a 34% strikeout rate. So again, that is something you would really want to attack. However, the way he goes about getting these strikeouts and the archetype of hitter in which he does get these strikeouts, very right-handed dependent and dependent on that slider. It's his best strike pitch, or 2-strike offering at the very least. The usage of that pitch changes drastically between right-handed batters and left-handed batters. He throws it about 37% of the time against righties, and that's down to 23% of the time against lefties. And the obvious correlation there is his strikeout rate goes from 34.5% against right-handed hitters to just 25.1% against left-handed hitters. The Royals don't have any good left-handed hitters, depending on how you feel about Lucas Duda. We are in the city of New York.
Duda.
They've got 6 of them in the lineup tonight, including some switch hitters. So there's going to be a lot of left-handed bats where this could change Flaherty's ceiling from someone who could possibly throw like 7 scoreless or 7 one-run innings, but maybe only strike out 6 or 7 guys as opposed to 10 tonight.
All right, so if you're assessing this lineup and you have to fill out your pitching slots first, obviously you're not going with Charlie Morton.
No.
So where do you start at the top? Is Flaherty the guy?
I'm not going with Flaherty. I think he will be popular, but I would find a way to pay up for Trevor Bauer.
But because you've been in Brooklyn, you're now a hipster, so you can't take the popular guy.
Well, I mean, I've been trying to figure out, and like Levy was saying, I think this is the hardest time and the hardest event to try to figure out what the ownership percentages are going to be, because no one here is public. This is sharps, and we talked about this a little bit on your show yesterday. Like, I don't know where it devolves. Like, do you start outthinking yourself because you're thinking everyone else is thinking the same thing and you want a cartwheel? So I don't know. I think in that scenario, just taking the guy who's been phenomenal across basically since the middle of May. I mean, Trevor Bauer has a 33.6% strikeout rate across his last 15 starts. He's going up against a White Sox team that has struck out in 30% of their plate appearances the last 2 weeks. And if that's not a big enough sample for anyone out there, they've also just struck out the most in baseball of any team this season. So I think when you look at Bauer and his ability to have such a high ceiling and the way these pitching tiers kind of break down, we've only got 3 guys priced above $8,000. So you can save money at pitcher. I think with a guy like Bauer, you might have to go towards the $6,000 tier.
So who are the guys down there? Mike Leone's not currently playing in this.
He's not that we know of.
I don't know if he's like a surprise entrant, like in like the Royal Rumble or something like that. But I think he would just play Dan Straley and leave the rest of his lineup empty.
I think Straley's going to be a popular play tonight. I would maybe attack the other side of that game. I would go with Corey Oswalt, who is not nearly as well known.
So
but
not Roy Oswald.
Not Roy Oswalt.
So not him.
Not Patton Oswalt.
You don't want to play them.
No, you don't want to play those two gentlemen. You want to play Corey Oswalt.
See, these are great. These are great tips. Going to help me win.
He's got a 235 opponent WOBA over his last 5 starts. The strikeout ceiling is not exceedingly high at all. He's a ground ball dependent pitcher. But the Marlins, if the Detroit Tigers didn't exist, the Marlins would be by far the worst offensive franchise of the last 30 days. Like, there were only 2 teams with a WRC plus below 90.
All right, so what's an average WRC plus?
100.
Okay, so they're below average.
They are well below average.
So who's the other one?
It's Detroit. No, actually, the Mets aren't good, and that's why Straley is going to be popular as well. But right now, the Tigers, who aren't on the slate, obviously, that leaves the Marlins, who have a 62 WRC plus, a 262 WOBA across their last 14 days. They've been atrocious. And even if you go back 30 days, those numbers don't get a whole lot better. They also have the lowest isolated power in baseball over the last month as well. So there's nothing positive about the Marlins. Really, if you want to know everything you need to know about the Marlins, the guy who's leading off for them tonight, Ortega, is not even in the DraftKings system. So we're in uncharted territory.
Nobodies. What you're saying.
It's a rough go. They trade Justin Bauer yesterday, by far their best left-handed power bat, and that's really the way to attack Oswalt as well. I mean, he's sort of a Von Nova-esque, actually. When I was looking at it today, his strikeout rate against right-handed batters is 22%, which is slightly above average. His strikeout rate against left-handed batters is 11%. The Marlins only have 3 lefties in the lineup tonight, and they're not any good.
Now, here's the thing. If the players actually know that there's so much money on the line for people here, do you then turn to big game James Shields?
No.
Because it's a big game?
No. Do not turn to big game James Shields.
Heed his warning.
Contrarian play. We can always spin it positive.
Well, no, here's
Contrarian
the thing.
play, James Shields.
If everyone is using Bauer and he's 12-5, and let's say I like Morton, you don't, but let's say I like him. I switch off to Morton, I save $1,000 at the top, and then I just play Shields going against the pitcher everyone else is playing. If you were one of the people with like 3-4 entries, is that a strategy that you would consider?
I might not do the double. I think differentiating your lineup in one pitching slot is probably enough for me. I don't think I would go double with that because, you look at not only that, if you're saving money using James Shields and you're in an attempt to maybe pay up for some bats, if you don't like Boston, which look, some people still may be a little squirrely about using Boston in a game that might get rained out, what big name bats are you saving up to use? Because all the money you're saving can't go towards the Indians hitters who are at the top of the position.
Okay, well, let's say instead of using James Shields, let's say that instead of using Bauer, knowing that he could be like 70% owned, something like that, what if you just burned a lineup on White Sox hitters? Knowing that if Bauer gets lit, you're the only person who has them.
I mean, I think the way to go about using the White Sox tonight wouldn't be a full-on stack in any scenario.
Just use the 3 best guys?
I don't think there's a way this explodes for Cleveland. I mean, the argument a month and a half ago would have been that Bauer doesn't last more than 5 innings. They turn to an atrocious bullpen, but they've improved their bullpen a great deal. So it's really hard to attack this team in any formulaic way. I think if you want to get like Nicky Delmonico in there as a leadoff hitter, he's hitting leadoff, he's cheap. Like, these are very simple arguments that you can make for saving money at a certain spot, but Daniel Palka, who is by far their best left-handed power hitter, strikes out in over a third of his plate appearances against right-handed pitching, and he's going up against one of the best strikeout pitchers in all of baseball. So you start looking for ways to get cute. I don't mind necessarily using one of the guys at the top of the White Sox order, but even a mini stack I think is out of the question. Like, one might be enough.
Well, it just seems like if you would have these multiple entries, that using like if now this Boston game isn't a place where people are going to be afraid to attack.
That's true.
That the ownership is going to rise for those guys, and knowing that one guy is going to be chalk, and you can dedicate a lineup to going against that guy.
I think the way you want to do that, if you want to play the let's go against one of the highest owned pitchers, I think stacking some bats in that Marlins-Mets game. I mean, again, like you said, it's the Mets have not been great.
Right.
I think we all know that. The Marlins, as I mentioned, have not been great either. But
in the last 3 days in New York City, no one has brought that up to me.
Not at all. But Dan Straley, there's a reason that we never talk about Dan Straley until we come to the Fantasy Baseball World Championships, where he's like a poster child. But he struggles against left-handed bats, and if there's anything positive you can say about the Mets, it's that they do have some quality left-handed bats. I'm not 100% sure what quality they are all the time, but you've got like Jeff McNeil, who's hitting second now and is super cheap. Brandon Nimmo's a little bit more expensive. You know, Conforto, who's been a massive disappointment this season from a fantasy perspective, still batting cleanup and is only $4,000 on this slate. So maybe that's the way you attack the high-owned pitchers. Don't go against Bauer. Let's actually go against some high-owned pitchers who aren't really that good, but the situation dictates we have to use them.
Have to use them? So that's
Well, if you want
your
Bauer,
Gary on T?
If you want Bauer, I would say
you
this.
just want to say Gary on T.
Who wouldn't want to say it?
Hey, I mean, it's a good excuse to say it.
You want a Gary on T?
Yeah, I want to hear it.
My Gary on T would be in the lineups tonight.
You need to say it more like you're from Louisiana.
My Gary on T would be that the lineups we see tonight featuring Trevor Bauer have one of the pitchers in that Marlins-Mets game as the SB2. I would say 75% of Bauer lineups are going to feature one of those two guys tonight.
Gary and Thorne, follow him on Twitter at Gary and Thorne, and follow his work on DK Live, and you'll be back later in the show, right?
I will be back later in the show.
Yeah, and Garion had some amazing stats, but we have plenty more stats to throw at you specifically about the Fantasy Baseball World Championship with Adam Kaufman.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Chelsea Piers 60, New York City. Why are we here? Well, I think it's probably pretty obvious by now, and we're excited. The 2018 Fantasy Baseball World Championships for DraftKings. It's the 5th annual final, but one thing that's really great, we're going to be crowning a new champion. No repeat winners. The 4 past champs, only one of them's here, but just here as a guest, didn't qualify. You have 135 seats. 84 unique people. So obviously there are some that have multiple seats. 9 players, in fact, 9 people here maxed out. What that means is they have 4 entries, 4 tries for a share of $4 million. First prize, that's what it's all about. 500 grand, $500,000. You get, gold bat, world championship belt, but it's all about the money. If you finish last place, that's still 10 grand. Nobody's going home upset, but to go home a big winner, $500,000. And to watch it here in this room with all these TVs, there's going to be more than 300 people in attendance just enjoying the sweat. You got 6 games that are going to be taking place. Weather may be a problem. That's something to keep an eye on. Something that's going to keep maybe people up real late trying to think about whether or not they have a chance to win this thing. And also, we may have world champs in various sports in the same calendar year. The 2018 champ for basketball is here. For hockey is here. And again, we're going to have a first-time winner in DraftKings history for baseball. So it's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a great time on this broadcast. Make sure you stay with us here. And again, by the end of the night, we'll be crowning a new Fantasy Baseball World Champion.
Welcome back to the 2018 DraftKings Fantasy Baseball World Championships live from New York City. Maria has stepped off the set for a second, but no worries. She will be back momentarily. But first, we've got Alex Jankowski, Steve Buchanan, and Gary and Thorne. You stuck around.
I'm back already.
You're way over there now.
Yeah, I smell.
I can't have you in reach.
That's probably for the best.
Yeah, I think so too. But we're going to be talking about the plays on the slate, the full 10-game slate that we're looking at that everyone out there can go enter right now. I mean, there's people playing for a top prize of $500K, but you go to the DraftKings lobby right at this second, you'll get some contests after you listen to some of these. So let's start off with the pitchers that everyone is targeting tonight. Jaco, let's go with you.
Yeah, I know Gary talked a lot about Trevor Bauer, the spot that he's in, but what I like about the 10 game that's not available to you on the 6 game for these guys playing here, Aaron Nola, under $10,000 at Petco Park facing these Padres. Great spot there for a team that has to win, needs a great start from their top ace. I think they're going to get it. You talk about the strikeout upside that he presents. I know that San Diego has been hitting the ball better, but we know also there's not a lot of left-handed bats that are going to scare you in that lineup. So a little bit surprising to me that he's as cheap as he is. Maybe he hasn't been carrying the upside as much of late, but I really like that price for him, under $10,000. And then I'm going to pair him with the second part of that Mets-Marlins game. I'll go with Dan Straley. I just like the strikeout upside that you'll get there. Certainly more of a blow-up factor from Dan Straley, but also you're at home in a pitcher's park. I'll go with Straley.
Steve?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jack Flaherty here, 9,600 against the Royals. I mean, we've said it over and over again. I mean, this Royals offense, I don't even know if you want to call it an offense at this point. They're just absolutely putrid. And look, over the last 2 weeks, 303 WOBA, 139 isolated power. They're not striking out as much as I'd like them, just under 21%. But, I mean, Flaherty's got some amazing swing and miss rate, 12.8 on the season. I mean, he's just absolutely getting those swing and misses. And then on the road, you got to love him on the road. They're 288 WOBA with a 3.87 FIP. Flaherty's my guy here tonight. He's been killing it lately, averaging just under 21 DK fantasy points over his last 5 games. I think for his price point, he's a fantastic play tonight.
You got anyone at the bottom that you're looking at?
Man, you know what?
You're going with Straley too? But, I mean, I think that's a conversation that we need to have. How do you actually construct the second pitcher? Do you go expensive, and then pay down and punt at, like, catcher, punt at shortstop?
I tried that. It's a risky proposition.
It's risky?
If you have Bauer and if you have Flaherty in the same lineup, you're left with
tough for bats.
You're left with playing me in your lineup, basically?
$480 or something along those lines. Like, it's tough.
And then you're just praying that Baltimore gets rained out,
Right.
and then you're fine because you couldn't get Betts or Martinez.
But I feel like that's not a tactic I would be using. Like, if you're just playing in a DK contest tonight on the 10-game slate, like that for me, my thought process on that was, hey, if I'm here and I have one entry. And I just want to make sure I walk out of here being able to say I didn't finish dead last. Or I want to walk out of here with, like...
I like the lofty goals that you have for your lineups.
You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you look at it and go, you know, can I make sure I get $25,000 here tonight?
Yeah.
And maybe you want to get 30 points from each of your 2 pitchers and then just say, look, I just need a couple of these value plays to hit, and now I'm looking at a 100-point lineup, and that's going to get me paid a little bit more than I maybe expected to be paid.
I mean, it's amazing that we're here at the Fantasy Baseball World Championship, and Dan Straley is the hot topic of the night. That's the guy that everyone's looking for.
The Marlins Mets game is going to be on one of the 2 main screens.
Well, it's funny. Like, this is the fifth Fantasy Baseball World Championship. I think Dan Straley has factored into all 5 at this point.
He's got a history. And mentioning that, too, that we talk about if you have 4, now you have monopoly money, right, that you have so much to work with. You still have to have one lineup that's good, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
we talk so much.
No.
Well, you can use this one to.
I'm not sure about how the rules work, but I don't know if you're right on that one.
But I think Gary made an interesting point. We were trying that earlier today. Like if you took those 2 guys, what were you left with? But when you're only looking at that 6-game slate, you don't have a lot of value that's opening up. 10 games, you got a little bit more. You can go out to L.A., Oakland as well, and then Philly and San Diego are in play too. And there's just other ways that you can go about doing it. But looking still under Straley, you know, Wade Miley, Edwin Jackson, these kind of guys, they're not guys. They're maybe
what is this, like 1998?
He's been really good lately.
Yeah,
and I would say for
baffling.
people out there who want to kind of pair one of the big name guys with Edwin Jackson tonight, because you look at that Angels lineup without Mike Trout, and I think the first thought is anyone can pitch against the Angels when Mike Trout's not in this lineup. I'm a little worried about Edwin Jackson tonight. I kind of sneaky like this Angels lineup. I think when they're at home, I mean, Angel Stadium has been the best ballpark in the American League for left-handed home run hitters so far this season. You look at Cole Calhoun, who's been on fire since the start of July. Shohei Ohtani also there. You know, Albert Pujols isn't dead. He's close to it, but he's not. He's still got a pulse.
He's got some decent BVP from him against back in 2000. I think it was.
That's a funny.
Even the mayor of BVP City here is not jumping at that.
And back in 2000, Albert Pujols was only like 51 years old. So
yeah.
So you went with Nola, you went with Flaherty. Who are you going with?
I've already talked about my 2 guys. It'd be Oswalt and it would be Bauer. I will say about Flaherty, the one kind of interesting, you could either look at it from an optimistic perspective or a pessimistic perspective, is the knock on Flaherty is his control. He struggles with walks on occasion. The Royals are a hyper-aggressive team. Across the last 30 days, they actually rank inside the top 10 in swing rate. They've only got a 7.2% walk rate. But conversely, with a hyper-aggressive team, you're not going to be working as deep into the count. And hyper-aggressive teams don't necessarily strike out as much as you would like them to because these plate appearances finish after a pitch or 2 pitches. So for Flaherty, it could be a positive that he's facing a team that doesn't walk a whole lot, one of his major red flags, but he's also going to face a team that might not necessarily get a lot of 2-strike counts.
Who's the one pitcher just don't play on this slate?
LeBlanc against the Astros.
Jeffrey Ramirez.
Or him too. But I think LeBlanc is someone
Walker
that
Lockett in San Diego.
Yeah, I probably don't want to touch Walter Lockett either.
Walter Walker.
Is it Walker? Walker Lockett.
Yeah, put it this way. I
we
think
can't
you
say
should
the
always have a
name.
DraftKings rule that if you can't pronounce the guy's name, you probably shouldn't play.
That seems like a pretty good
Unless you're
rule.
playing
like that.
EuroLeague basketball, and then maybe.
Oh,
Or,
man.
or you're playing like the Euro Tour golf, and you're just like, oh, this guy, I can't pronounce it. He's great, though. You might want to go with him.
Fantastic.
You just call him the Jazz Man. That's what we call him in that situation. All right, Steve, let's talk about hitters. Where are you going? The first look that you're taking on the DraftKings slate tonight, who is it?
Yeah, it's going to be Travis Shaw, 4,900 versus the Braves tonight. They're going against Julio Teheran. And the thing about Teheran is he's a great pitcher until we get a lefty up to the plate. And then everything just kind of falls apart. 344 WOBA on the year with a 5.99 FIP against lefties. Look, Shaw is a streaky hitter. We all know that. But he's having an excellent month of July thus far. 420 WOBA on the year, 346 isolated power, only 3 extra base hits. But he's made all of them count because they've all been home runs. I mean, I think this is going to be a really bad spot for Teheran. I fully expect this to be a very popular play across the board tonight here at the Fantasy Baseball World Championship and with everybody else who's playing at home. I think this is going to be a smash spot for the Brewers.
Garion, who do you guarantee hits a home run tonight?
Who do I guarantee hits home run? I like Yonder Alonso a whole lot. I think on the 10-game slate where you have a little bit more flexibility with who you can actually slot in as your SP1 and SP2, a full-out Indian stack is one of my favorite stacks on the board. It's going to be a little harder on the 6-game slate to get like Jose Ramirez or Francisco Lindor in your lineup. So if you can't get those two guys, Yonder Alonso has the benefit of batting cleanup tonight because Edwin Encarnacion is sitting out. And he's just been very good. I mean, he's been as advertised so far for Cleveland. He's got 20 home runs on the year. 16 of those 20, as you would expect, have come off of right-handed pitching, a 216 ISO in those situations. And as the mayor of BVP Town would tell you, some great numbers against James Shields. 3 home runs, 4 extra base hits in just 12 at-bats. So a lot to like about Yonder Alonso. And I do think for Shields, too, like, it's weird. We've spent a lot of the season debating, like, can you stack against James Shields? Because he doesn't seem to be giving up the runs.
Just don't do it in big games.
That's
big game, James.
That's a good
right.
point, I guess. I don't know what would constitute
he's
a
little
big game for the White
less
Sox at this
gas
point.
canny than he was last year.
Yeah.
No, I see what you're saying.
But you look the last 5 games, a 362 opponent WOBA. Like, that would lead you to believe, and he's not someone who biases by handedness either. Like, he'll give up home runs to lefties or righties, which is great. Thank you so much, James Shields. But he's great at guaranteed rate field. Like, you would want this game to be progressive so badly. But I think if that does scare people away, if I can get a low ownership and low exposure Cleveland Indians stack against James Shields, I take that every time I can get it.
So, Alonso, we got Shaw, who you got?
It's interesting that, like, one of the main storylines that we were looking at before the weather really started to become a factor, and that really needed to be what we addressed right off the bat, was some severe splits that we're looking at tonight and what that's going to do to open up some value. You're talking about lefties versus Teheran.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, like, barometric pressure splits for the weather, stuff like that.
Yeah,
not
he
like
went off-
not
he went
lefty.
off camera,
Everyone knows
meteorologist.
lefty-righty stuff.
I didn't have the glasses. I needed to borrow them. Yeah. But lefties versus Teheran, righties versus Danny Duffy. So I'm looking at 2 of those, both of whom will cost you under $4,500. Mike Moustakas for the Brewers. You talk about Teheran's great until he meets a lefty. He's going to see Moustakas before he's going to see Shaw.
Yep.
Moustakas batting third. So I like that just right off the bat there. And then Jed Jerko, all he can really do nowadays, could I ever really do, is hit the lefty.
Well, he
every
plays
now
a
and
bunch
then.
of positions, too. It doesn't mean anything for our purposes, really.
Yeah, second base and third base eligible, so you can get Moustakas and Jerko in, going up against Danny Duffy out there in Kansas City. Duffy, who has been pitching much better lately. This isn't so much, though, about Duffy being in a blow-up spot as much I like Jerko there in that matchup individually.
Sorry, Pat, but something you do have to watch with Duffy, too, is like he had this renaissance period about 2 months ago where he all of a sudden was back. He was Danny Duffy again, and a big reason for that was his fastball velocity had spiked back up above 95 miles per hour. He was even hitting 97 more consistently than he had at any point in his career, specific to a game against Minnesota. It's tapering off again. It's the last 3 starts, it's back below 94 miles per hour on average. And, he has pitched better as of late, but he has gotten the full benefit of being a pitcher in the AL Central his last 6 starts. It's gone Minnesota, Chicago, Minnesota, Detroit, Chicago, Minnesota. Like, he actually has to face a real-life offense tonight in Milwaukee, and it's probably not going to go all that well.
So when we're constructing a lineup for the 10-game slate versus everyone who is going to be here on that 6-game slate or 5.5-game slate, as I have dubbed it, because I am great at monikers and selling these types of things. I don't know if it's
Will
gonna
there
work
be
out.
T-shirts by the time
There should
everyone
be.
shows
If
up?
we were on top of it, we'd have Garion wearing it already.
Hooray!
Anyway, How does this change from a hitting perspective when you're actually trying to fill out your lineups? Like you said, when you tried to build the top-heavy pitcher, you were left with basically nothing. And some of the guys that you're bringing up as some of the better plays, are they even on the slate kind of thing? Oh, yeah, Shaw is, right?
Yeah.
Alonso is, right?
No, I think
I
all
wasn't
these
really
guys are.
devastated by anything that wasn't on the 6-game slate, aside from I did really like
No
the
Coors
Angels
Field.
exposure. Coors Field.
Yeah.
But even that was going to be an interesting spot tonight. Like,
Yeah.
I liked Walker Buehler. I think you like
Yeah.
Walker Buehler, too.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, going up against Freeland. Yeah, so too, it would have been helped maybe spread a little bit of ownership out.
Yeah.
And I think mostly in the top tier pitching is where that would have come, because I think Nola would have ended up being not as popular as Trevor Bauer, but he still would have
He was
snuck
a
in.
crucial step, though, like breaking up the Bauer and breaking up Flaherty.
Yeah.
Like, you needed him in there.
And just Morton right now is just where he is.
Yeah.
You're not going to see a lot of people, I think, on Charlie Morton, or that means that you're going to see everyone here on Charlie Morton.
Right.
That's what comes down to the strategy
We had this
here.
debate yesterday, though, and I was throwing out some numbers about how much I liked Garrett Cole, and Cole had pitched amazingly across his last 5 starts, even if he didn't have the surface numbers to show for it. And Steve rightly pointed out, Seattle just doesn't strike out. And, you look at Cole's numbers, 7 1/3 innings last night, only gets 5 strikeouts. And this is someone who was striking out 37% of the batters he had faced across his last 5 starts before running into the Mariners. So at a certain point, you just have to say, like, we can only run headlong into a Mariners wall so often before we realize this team just doesn't strike out.
Well, I got some breaking news here off the wire.
Okay.
Yasmani Grandal has been scratched from tonight's game for the Dodgers. Austin Barnes will start at catcher.
That's not too bad. I think most people don't necessarily love playing Grandal against a lefty. Like, he's sapped so much of his power.
Yeah, but his name is Yasmani.
We had this exact discussion 2 days ago.
That's the only thing I care about is he has a cool name. I want to play him.
The only
now
thing
I can't.
That's fine.
That's actually a good spot for Barnes because he hits lefties better. So if anything, that's actually opens up a huge value play because offhand, Grandal, I believe, was the highest priced catcher on the night.
Yeah.
Grandal 49.
Yeah.
And at Barnes, you have him at 32.
3,200.
So
it wasn't a
Coors
lot in terms of value catching. Like, I was sitting there lamenting that Tyler Flowers, who crushes lefties, I mean, the Braves have really held this, like, okay, it's Flowers one day, Suzuki the next day. They've done it all season long without looking at splits, and it's like someone go tell them that, like, he crushes lefties. Like, let him play 2 nights in a row.
Now, in terms of ownership, I don't think that's going to affect Grandal too much because I can't imagine a lot of people would have been looking at that anyways, but I think that will spike the ownership on Barnes.
But here's the thing. If he's only $3,200, could that now lend itself back to paying more up at pitcher, or would you spend that money elsewhere, potentially in the outfield?
No, because I think if you were going to go with the 2 higher pitchers, you were punting even further below on catcher. You're talking maybe
in the
26.
10 game, in the 10-game slate, though, I mean, this wasn't a possibility on the 6-game slate, but on the 10-game, like, you could realistically do a Nola Flaherty lineup. Like, that's not off the table. You just have to find a couple value plays. So, like, you'd have about $37,500 to spend on each position after that. You throw Austin Barnes there in at 3-2. You find someone maybe like, I mean, Cole Calhoun's like 4,000, but you can find enough guys towards the bottom of positions on a 10-game slate, I think, where that's extremely in play for me, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Nola, Flaherty, Barnes, you're at 4,000 remaining.
That's not bad at all. You can definitely build a lineup with that.
All right, let's talk sacks, because that's – if someone's going to win the big prize here at the Fantasy Baseball World Championships, it's either going to be by 1 game stack, more than likely, or 2 mini stacks from 2 separate games. But even on the 10-game slate, Alex, we'll start with you. What are you seeing as the top 2 or even the best one?
Yeah, to me, it's the Brewers, and I think so much of this circles around the uncertainty with the Red Sox. I think if we get more clarity and it does start to look like they're going to get that game in, I love the value that you can get with some of those other guys now, with Benintendi out, with Moreland out. You got Steve Pearce, you got Brock Holt hitting up in much better spots than they ever have.
Brock Holt!
And but going back to the Brewers, like, just because they have so many left-handed hitters now, you got Thames back in the lineup. Also, there's so many different ways you can go. Christian Yelich, I think, is probably the overall best hitter from a cash game lineup perspective tonight. You know, I'm not sure he brings some of the upside as other people in the 5,500 range, but you pair him with Moustakas, you pair him with Thames, Shaw, guys that can go off for 2 home runs at least, and then you have a good balance there, I think, in that stack. So I think the Brewers, to me, are the top stack.
So Brew Crew for Alex. Steve, who you got?
Yeah, I definitely like the Brewers, too. I don't want to
So
rehash
you're copying Alex.
No.
Did you even do research for
Hold
this?
on. Let me finish. I got some good stuff here. I like the Brew Crew a lot. I think Alex is totally right, but I think one team that's going to be overlooked is the Astros. Because you asked, who are you not going to play tonight? LeBlanc. So if I'm not going to play LeBlanc, I might as well stack against him because that seems pretty reasonable. He's made 4 appearances against this team. 2 of them are starts. Combined, 12 1/3 innings, 14 earned runs, 22 hits, a 9-to-5 K to walk ratio, 5 home runs allowed. Now we put in the factor that Carlos Correa is back in this lineup. Now we got things going here. The Astros are starting to get a little bit healthy here with Correa back in the lineup. 337 WOBA against lefties for the Astros. 185 isolated power. I'm not hearing a lot of chatter about the Astros here tonight, so I feel like I don't know if it's more sneaky play here, but with the Brewers getting a lot of love, I feel like the Astros could definitely get looked over tonight.
One thing that's interesting with the Astros, too, is like just the sequencing of when these injuries happened. It's really benefited Alex Bregman specifically because on a sinking ship, Bregman's price point was dropping after it had been up around like $5,500 right off the All-Star break. He's only 4 or 5 tonight, and he's got a 421 WOBA at home against left-handed pitching this season. And he also, like, we talk all the time about how, like, J.D. Martinez knows what ballpark he's in. Hitters at Coors Field, like there was that old
When you say he knows what stadium he's in, like he's just aware of where he's at in
he
the
knows
world?
how to utilize,
like he showed up in the city, he's like, I thought I was in Detroit, what's going on here?
He knows how to utilize the park that's around him. Like there was a couple years back when Justin Morneau, like the aging Justin Morneau, won a batting title in Colorado, essentially saying, I'm never going to walk and I'm never going to strike out. I just need to put the ball in play. Bregman loves that short porch in left field at Minute Maid Park. His pull rate against left-handed pitching is 60%, and his fly ball rate is up around 50%. So all he's trying to do, much like you would do at Fenway, is elevate the ball and make sure it's going down the left field line.
And now also because of those injuries, third base and shortstop eligible there for Bregman.
That's a lot of flexibility, too.
Yeah, well, that's definitely awesome.
All right, so what are you thinking about your main stack?
I do like the Indians.
I assumed everyone just liked the Brewers.
You can't necessarily afford the big guys like I was talking about, especially on the 6-game slate, but I think Yan Gomes is an interesting play at catcher. Yonder Alonso is only 4,000 again. If you want to kind of veer off that a little bit, the Cardinals are in a similar spot. Like, there's not a whole lot of price you have to pay. I don't think anyone wants to use Carpenter left on left, so that was really the only guy that you were thinking, I probably can't afford him. I don't want to use him anyway. Then you're left with, like, Harrison Bader, who's been really good against left-handed pitching so far this season. Alex already mentioned Jed Jerko. I mean, even someone like Marcell Ozuna, he's got some weird, like, home-road splits when it comes to lefties, where he hits lefties so much better at Busch. But at a certain point, you have to ask yourself, like, I know there's the batter's eye, there's the comfort of playing at home, whatever.
Knowing what city you're in, that helps.
Knowing what city you're in helps. I mean, it's Missouri. He's playing. He knows what state he's in at the very least.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I just assumed it was one of these things where he showed up to the stadium and like ran in a circle for an hour and he was just all dizzy.
But he
couldn't
hit
figure
lefties.
it out.
He hit lefties in 2016. He hit lefties extremely well in 2017. He's hit lefties in general well this season, just not on the road. But I think I would trust the larger sample of just he can hit lefties as opposed to he can't hit lefties as soon as he leaves St. Louis.
Oh, see, that's interesting. Any contrarian stacks that you think will be a little bit off the board that do have some viability? Like you mentioned the Astros.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else like that anyone can think of?
I think the Orioles are certainly in play tonight. Chris Davis is my ultra contrarian pick because they're still batting him 5th. They don't care.
No.
You know, they're going to still throw him out there. And all he's going to be able to do is potentially get a hold of one and hit a home run. All Hector Velasquez does is give up homers to lefties, giving up 5 this year. All 5 have come to left-handed batters. Jonathan Villar still is up there at the top of the order, switch hitter. So, and we saw last night, the Orioles can run with the Red Sox.
Oh, yeah.
They can both score runs. The Red Sox will always just score more runs because that's all that they do. But the Orioles are still going to accrue some points on their own.
All right. So I think that's good for this discussion for right now. Your top plays, your top pitchers, your top hitters, these stacks, contrarian stacks. We got more coming up live from New York City at the Draftkings Fantasy Baseball World Championship. Janko's going to take a hike for a little bit. He'll be back later. Steven Garian will stay. Maria will come back. We'll talk a little bit about BVP on tonight's slate. But first, all of the DraftKings World Championship qualifiers were at Yankee Stadium last night for the showdown slate. So let's check out and see what they were up to.
DraftKings really rolls out the red carpet treatment for this stuff. You can see with this event, it's amazing. I mean, it's a great experience overall.
You know, at this point, you're obviously less than 24 hours from the event. Do you get nervous? You get anxious? First time baseball for you?
It's my first baseball one. I had I've made both the basketball ones this year. A little bit anxious to get it started. I'm not really nervous, though. It's nothing really to be nervous about. I mean, I play every day anyway. It's not like I'm going into some kind of physical event.
Having experienced this for basketball a couple of times, you won for basketball once. So, I mean, what was your mentality like during that experience for basketball? Were you nervous during the event, or like during the sweat and everything?
Yeah, during the sweat, it's definitely a feeling of nervousness and anxiousness and all kinds of emotion all overcoming you at once. Good emotion, obviously. I'd love to have that sweat again tomorrow.
Sure.
I mean, that'd be the ultimate goal.
I've been to a lot of events where we go to a sports game and watch the game as part of whatever the Draftkings puts on, and the game's always like a background thing. But here, with playing Showdown with 100K on the line at the live final, like a lot of us are out there like actually watching everything.
Having a sweat.
So that's cool. That's a great new twist that I love. I've missed out on the Guzman double dogs. Like, I'm done. So now I'm
like
back
7% ownership tonight, too, right?
I don't know. I didn't look. Now that I'm dead, I'm like not over there watching every pitch anymore. But it's a great twist. Like, this is gonna be awesome for live finals.
And your wife, she came on this trip with you, and she was just really pumped to experience New York City.
Oh yeah.
I mean, at this point, we're hours away from the live final, the main event. What have you guys done around here?
So this morning we had some free time, so we went to Central Park, and she had a bucket list of items that she wanted to go, all kinds of bakeries and places and things she wanted to try. So we checked all those off, ate a bunch of good food, and came back, had brunch with Draftkings, and then went back out. And we actually went to the 9/11 Museum, which was really powerful and something we've been wanting to do for a long time. So it was a good day.
So at this point, though, do you need to kind of kick her out?
She's got me for another brunch tomorrow, and then we may walk around, do something else, and then after lunchtime, she's going to go to the Met and do a bunch of things, more shopping. I'm going to go back to the room and start researching.
How you feeling with the big contest tomorrow?
So far, I'm feeling good. Thanks to you guys, we had a nice pre-party.
Yeah.
And as I was leaving the party, let's see, not only did I get crapped on by a pigeon once, I got crapped on twice.
That's doubly good luck.
And as you can see there. So I wasn't, any other day I would have probably been upset getting crapped on by a pigeon, but knowing I was on my way to a fantasy baseball competition, I thought it would be good luck. I have an interesting outfit to wear tomorrow night, but
you teased that before.
But I'm in a dilemma. Do I not wear the good luck charm that I got pooped on twice, or do I wear the suit? So maybe I'll wear this underneath the suit. You know, I mean, like I've said before, I feel my buddy and I are kind of the Cinderella teams. You know, being police officers who just do this for fun, and looking around the room and seeing, oh my God, you know, the screen names that we see every night that are at the top. Now that I'm in second place, it kind of makes me feel like, you know what,
you belong.
I got a chance here.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, well, you get a nice free hat tonight. Nice
actually, don't tell nobody, but I got 2 of them.
Oh
here, so.
boy.
Welcome back to Set. We are live here at the 2018 Draftkings Fantasy Baseball World Championships. Maria Marino, Pat Mayo is here as well, and we have our guys back here, DK Live contributors Steve Buchanan and Garion Thorne, and we're going to talk a little batter versus pitcher discussion for the slate this evening, little BVP. What do you got, guys?
Well, first of all, I know this is Pat Mayo's favorite segment of the night. Absolutely favorite segment.
Did I catch an eye roll?
I just give side eye to everybody at this point.
Okay, got it.
BVP, give your head a shake, pal.
Yeah, so, you know, admittedly, some of the BVP tonight, it's not that great, but listen, BVP is BVP. It's good no matter what the sample size is here. So I'm going to give some to Garion here, and then he's going to try and fight what I'm saying here.
This first one's going to be tough, as I've already given him my stamp of approval.
Well, see, we're going to try here. But look, I'm looking at Yonder Alonso here, $4,100 against James Shields, 4 for 12 lifetime, 3 home runs and a double. So all of his hits have gone for extra bases, 5 RBIs in that, averaging 3.91 DK fantasy points. But the weird thing about this spot here is that Shields has actually been really good against lefties at home. 253 WOBA with a 3.96 .93 FIP allowed with only 3 of his 21 home runs. But I feel like we've seen Shields kind of starting to fall off here a little bit, so I really like the spot for Alonso here.
Yeah, if I had to argue against Alonso, who
You
I've
don't
already
have
said...
to. You can say that you like him.
No, I've already said I
He's
liked
gotta
him,
play
but I
devil's
will
advocate.
say, just to play devil's advocate, the way that you would argue against this, and it would start with the numbers that Shields has been able to put up this season at his home park, at Guaranteed Rate Field, one of the stupidest
Worst
names in all of
names
sports.
ever.
He's been really good against lefties. He also, despite the fact that his WOBA has been way up, I heard that, don't worry. Despite the fact that it's been way up
I wanted us to
lately,
acknowledge that. That was pretty good.
Thank you.
his
Thanks so
strikeout
much.
rate is up above 25% over his
Yeah.
last 5 starts. So I guess you could argue that Shields does have the swing and miss capability to kind of limit Alonso, but we're really grasping at straws here. I really like Yonder Alonso tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. The other one I wanted to hit upon there was Evan Gattis, 4,100 against Wade LeBlanc. 6 for 11.
Is it LeBlanc or is it LeBlanc, like it's supposed to be said?
Am I saying it incorrectly?
Well, no,
you
saying
got it, believe me.
Yeah, you,
Okay.
no, you
Never
got
go
it.
to Pat for pronunciation.
No, you go to me for it's a French name. You pronounce it like he is Francais. It's Wade LeBlanc.
Let's say 6
One
for
way to go.
11 for Gattis. 6 for 11, 3 home runs,
Yeah,
a
don't
double,
even go
5
there.
5 RBI. He was the 3rd most expensive catcher, but now that we have Grandal, who has been scratched, he's now the 2nd most. The other thing is, too, is that JT Real Muto, who is now the most expensive at 4,300, he's been struggling lately. 3 for 8 DK fantasy points over his last 10 games. Just a .79 WOBA and a .37 ISO in the month of August. So that hot hitter for the Marlins has completely fallen off. So Gattis, I think, is another good spot here.
Yeah, I mean, Gattis is interesting just in the sense that he, much like Max Stassi, for some reason, I mean, we talked about like Alex Bregman and his ability to utilize Minute Maid Park. You would think that all the right-handed bats in this lineup against left-handed pitching would do exceedingly well against lefties for 2018. Gattis can't hit at home.
Yep.
He's been awful at Minute Maid Park this season. Just a 67 WRC plus in games in Houston. That drops to 55, which is exceedingly below average against left-handed pitchers in Houston. And while I really don't enjoy Wade LeBlanc, I think the problem...
LeBlanc.
See, now it's in my head.
I think he's a nice guy.
Now it's in my head.
He's probably a nice guy.
He seems like a nice guy. He's a journeyman.
Probably is.
He appreciates what the opportunity
Nothing
he's getting
against
right
him
now.
personally.
But he's had some bad numbers across his last
Right.
like 8 or 9 starts. The WOBA's up above 350. But you look at like his numbers specifically against right-handed bats, they're not that great for the right-handed bats.
Right.
Just a 312 WOBA, and this is someone who's allowing over a home run and a half per 9. So he's had some weird reverse splits all season long. So I just think when stat after stat after stat tells you that even though this guy batting cleanup tonight at a reasonable price is, you know, in a good spot, I just don't think you want to listen to the BVP on this one, even though it's all from this season primarily too. Like, as you talked about, he's been roughed up in all 4 appearances he's made against the Astros.
Well, that's one question I have about the BVP discussion. When you're actually focusing on this and you're a believer in it, it seems to work for you. But, like, how far back can you actually go? Because I think we had this discussion about actual sample size as it comes to it. And if it's all coming from this year, that does seem like it would be incredibly useful. But
Good question.
if they were, like, 16 at-bats from 5 years ago, would you really even care at that point?
Yeah, so I mean that's when you have to take into account like when there's massive BVP samples, like say I think it's Adam Jones and CC Sabathia.
Yeah.
They faced each other over 60 times since they've been in the major leagues. That's like an extreme. For the most part, when you get those BVP matchups, there's small sample sizes, 15, 20, 30 at bats, because for the most part, I mean you have to think about how long these guys are going to be in the majors to actually face each other so many times. So for the most part, I feel like it's pretty accurate, because you don't face these guys as much as you should be. So I tend to take those more than when the BVP sample sizes are huge. Like I just said, Adam Jones and CC Sabathia facing each other 64 times. Okay, obviously we have years of data going back there, and that doesn't really
And
matter
they have different
now.
tendencies as they grow.
Absolutely.
Well, like
the league.
Sabathia specifically too. Like we've seen this guy change who he
Yes.
is as a pitcher, like substantially. So I think to answer your question specifically, like I do, as someone who doesn't necessarily believe that much in BVP in general, I generally use it like a nice sprinkle on top. It's like a cherry.
Well, is there a way to look at it, though, like if someone has like a 10 at-bat sample, let's just use that as a theoretical problem here, and he has like, he's 7 for 10, but he has 7 singles. Like, do you care about that? Would you prefer someone who's like 4 of 10 who has 4 dingers?
Oh, of course. Like I think there was one specific case this season. I think Freddie Galvis against Clayton Kershaw. It was Freddie Galvis was 6 for 10 against Kershaw. All 6 were singles. His expected WOBA in those 10 at plate appearances was like under 200. So you look at that and go, okay, he's got like an average exit velocity of about 70 miles per hour in these plate appearances. I get the feeling that a lot of these are little blue pits and things like that. So, I mean, there's other situations, too. We've got, like, Paul Goldschmidt versus Hyun-Jin Ryu, where the average exit velocity is up above 110 miles per hour.
Yeah.
So at that point, you're like, wow, he really sees this guy well. And every single time the contact isn't just like, oh, he happens to be getting hits. It's he is smashing the ball. So, it's all so varied. And that's why I think it's case by case. You really have to go case by case.
And I'm always looking at their extra base hits. That's where I first land on who has the most extra base hits on this slate against said pitcher. That's where I'm always starting to look at here. I don't care about the singles. I don't care about the walks. Those don't get me enough points. 3 points, big whoop. That's not going to get me anything. I want those extra base hits, the doubles, the triples, and the home runs. But my last guy that I wanted to talk about, poor LeBlanc. I mean, if he was tuning in, this is like a LeBlanc hate show. And nothing against you, man. I think you're probably a good guy. But Josh Reddick, 3,900 against him. And I think this one's interesting because he's 5 for 10 against him with a home run, a double, and 2 RBIs. But the left-on-left matchup might shy people away. I actually don't mind that at all because LeBlanc has been worse against lefties, 329 WOBA with a 4.23 FIP, and then Reddick has been better against lefties, 389 WOBA with a 287 ISO and a 33% hard hit rate. So even though on the surface that doesn't look like a good matchup, I think once you start getting into the numbers, and this is why doing that research is important, Reddick is actually a much better play than you would just initially see by just looking at the on-the-surface numbers.
And I think the thing we have to look into for cases like Reddick specifically, not just his numbers within that split this season. Like, if you go back to last year, Josh Reddick has always been viewed as a platoon bat. Like, wherever he's been, people have kind of told him you can't hit left-handed pitching. So, while I don't want to dispel what he's done this season necessarily, we're up around 100 plate appearances in 2018 against lefties. You go back to last year in a similar sample, just a .087 isolated power. So, like you're saying, you don't want the singles hitter necessarily. Right. But in Reddick's favor, I mean, if we really hate Wade LeBlanc tonight, and it seems like you do, even though you gave him that little apology.
Sorry, man.
I mean, Josh Reddick's hitting 7th in this lineup tonight. Like, realistically,
he won't be in the
He
stacks.
might get 1 plate appearance against Wade LeBlanc, and then you're turning to a very right-handed, heavy Seattle Mariners bullpen. So things could turn around quickly for Reddick, where maybe people are off this guy, like you said, for the left-on-left stuff. And even if you don't buy that he's all of a sudden better against lefties, he's probably going to face a bunch of right-handed relievers at some point in this game.
You're the thorn poking holes in the BVP.
There we go.
That's why we don't get along too well. So it's all good.
You guys going to fight later?
I thought we were besties.
Oh, we might.
I see. Carrion thought you were friends.
Oh.
See?
Now I got to fight for my honor.
Fight for your honor and you defend my BVP. Mayor of BVP. I got to defend my
Well,
my
that's
BP.
like in between when the games kind of get stagnant a little bit. We fight to the death in front of all these guys here, and that's
For the
that
belt.
If everything goes to rain delay, we got to entertain the crowd somehow.
I'm definitely down with that.
That's fair.
But those are our BVPs for the
I
for
don't
the
want
night.
you
I
guys
like
to
those
fight.
ones.
I want
He's
you
all
guys
right.
to
He's
hug
all
it out.
right. You know,
in
I'm
the
hamming it up. He's all right. He's not bad.
Got
I
it.
don't know. I see it in your eyes. It's like there's real tension here.
Yeah.
We can talk about that off
I feel like
air.
you
We can
have
talk about
money
that.
on will there be a fight, a bare knuckle boxing match at the World
Not
Fantasy
only do I
Baseball
have that,
Championship.
I got one of you in that matchup. I'm not going to lie.
Look, we can't play in the contest tonight. We got to create our own action here. We got to keep
Right.
ourselves occupied.
Fair
somehow.
enough. Well, you're keeping me entertained, so there
So,
you go.
what are some other thoughts you have about even just the 6-game slate? Like now that more and more information is rolling out, have you changed your opinion? You've been hearing what Steve and Alex have been saying, and Steve, you're probably just not listening to them because that's a smart move right there. I know what you're up to, but is there anything that's made you change your mind about something tonight coming into it?
I don't really think I'm at a point yet where I've had my mind changed about anything. Like, we sift through the lineups, and we were looking for something that would kind of make you go, oh, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
We're missing this guy. This guy's been dropped down significantly. Everything's kind of gone to the book so far. I mean, the Red Sox-Baltimore thing that's probably what the philosophy I've changed the most on so far. Like,
correct.
Speaking of, can I get a weather update from you?
Yeah, we can get
how
a weather
much,
update.
How much has the percentage?
I'll work on the weather as an amateur meteorologist. I can
how
figure
much
this
has
out.
the percentage shifted? Because I know the last time we spoke on set, there was a massive shift.
You know what? We are
the
now down below 20%.
Wow, so that's
until
huge.
showers at
Wow,
10 o'clock.
huge.
So
Glad
at
I
this
asked.
point, yeah. I think you have to consider this game is 100% getting.
That's
But
why
I
you can't make your lineups the night before and never touch them again. That's a big
craziness.
deal.
Well, I keep saying that I want at the World Fantasy Baseball Championship, I want them to have to submit it like on a sheet of paper. And then have to like old school NFL draft where you have
Okay.
to like walk it up.
You
to a
walk
guy.
up your sheet of paper.
Yeah, and then like a golf card, you have to sign it. But if you sign it wrong, you're kicked out. Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
if you
you're
actually
DQ'd
qualify.
right away.
But then you got to worry about the people, handling the papers and is everything.
I feel like we're more competent than like the people running the 2017 Oscars. So
I was actually just thinking about that.
We always are. I think about that.
So do you guys have? I'm looking at the air temperature.
Oh, here we go.
There tonight in Baltimore, in downtown Baltimore, which I'm looking at right now.
Probably muggy, right?
So the air temperature right now, it's going to be like 30, 33, 32 degrees. Now the rain would break that up if it comes. But I mean, do we have splits on that? I'm just looking for inside splits.
I do not.
You got WRC plus over the last 7 days between left-handed batters who ate chicken this morning. You got no air temperature stuff for me?
I have no air temperature stuff. I apologize to everyone out there.
Don't be sorry.
How about tide type? Do we know if there's a certain tide? Some people are better.
I mean, there's a full moon tonight. I know that some hitters. The brightness coming off the moon is actually, it illuminates the field better, so the vision is much greater. So, hitters tend to hit better on a full moon probably.
I'm so out of this conversation, you guys can just duke it out.
All right, well, here's the thing. Everyone's starting to pile in behind us. All the qualifiers are showing up, finalizing their lineups. They'll be competing for the big prize of $500,000 at the 2018 Draftkings Fantasy Baseball World Championships. And Adam Kaufman is standing by with one of those qualifiers right now. Matt Sheets, username coaches111. See what he has to say.
All right, we're rapidly approaching, obviously, lock for the 2018 Fantasy Baseball World Championships. One of the guys that we've been tracking, keeping a close eye on, Matt Sheets here, Coach S111, just so you know the username. And Matt, I mean, how you feeling? All right, that no stress.
No, I'm stressed. I missed out on a second and third seat, and I've changed my lineup like 5 times. So I'm playing all other 5 in another contest. So at some point, I'm going to kick myself because I'm going to know which ones were better than the other. Let's hope I hit on the correct one.
How many other contests are you playing?
Right now, I have about 50 minutes. I have about 16 grand played out there, and about I don't know, 150 other lineups that I have to juggle around. But I focused on these 6 games, so I kind of I'm top heavy on the beginning part of the night.
Well, when there's $500,000 on the line, I would think that probably takes precedence over the other contests, right?
Yeah, without giving anything away, my strategy, I could be home in about an hour. So I'm definitely trying to get some low-owned folks, to say the least.
Will you, stay, hang, keep a close eye on everything all night, or if heaven forbid, obviously, but if things went south early, are you I got to get out of here. I don't want to be around this.
Well, I guess it kind of depends. If my other lineups are totally out, then I probably would get out and go rest. But I set it up to probably normal, either win or lose big. So, yeah, sorry. So I don't anticipate, if I was a betting man, I would say, the odds are stacked against me for the simple fact that I'm trying to go. You guys made it a 6-game slate.
Right.
That's not
it's
good.
Tough. No,
yeah,
it's
right.
tough.
No. Yeah, everyone can comb them in a little better, and you can't find the hidden gems. So it's almost like, in my opinion, do something, that is probably not likely going to work out. But the only way to separate yourself from the field.
Is there a particular play that you're feeling really good about? I know you can't tell us what it is, but just in general in your mind, you said you were swapping guys in and out, but is there something that's your lock? You got to leave it.
Yeah, I've got about offense. I feel better with. Where I'm really struggling is the pitching spots. I have offensive players in the high end and in some good sleepers that I like. I wish I could play more offense, but the pitchers I don't like anything.
Well, hopefully it breaks well for you. Obviously, we're going to be watching you tonight along with everybody else. But real quick, before this, you went out. You got maybe a good luck charm. I don't know. Let's see. You got some new shoes.
Got some pretty cool shoes from Flight Club. I don't buy a whole lot of stuff, but I'm kind of a shoe guy. So they're $130. They're pretty cool. My favorite color is orange. So I don't know. I like it.
Says just do it.
Just do it. Just win. How about that?
Just win. Go. Good luck.
Thank you, sir.
DraftKings Fantasy Baseball World Championships from Chelsea Pier, live in New York City. Pat Mayo with you. So is Gary and Thorne. So is my main man, Steve Buchanan, and Alex Jankowski. Down at the end. Hello down there.
I gotta give Maria a lot of credit because I am precipitously close to the edge here.
we actually,
you would not have known it.
After Maria left, we kind of pushed everything down that way, so you fall off and we get a viral video out of it.
Unfortunately,
Boom.
Yep, I can't take a hint, so I'm staying.
It's funnier if you fall because you're wearing a suit jacket. Anything fancier when missteps happen. It's funny when the 1% when they come down to our level.
The dad, yeah.
So we'll get back with Maria a little bit later on. She's out scanning around behind us. All the qualifiers are starting to pile in here. She'll be talking to at least one of them, and we'll get to that. But it's the four of us till the end of the show breaking down this 10-game slate, then weighing again on that 6-game slate that they're going to be playing for the DraftKings Fantasy Baseball World Championship. Janko, I want to start with you on this one. So the 10-game slate, the one that everyone's going to start playing at 7 p.m., everyone out there, we'll play it, they'll play it. Hopefully we can do all right with some of these picks. Top hitter for the night, who you got?
I think overall, if I'm not worried much about game format, cash game, GPP either, I think it's Christian Yelich. I think at 5,500, I believe is where he's at. This spot, lefties going up against Julio Teheran, it's a great spot overall. He's going to be at the top of the order. He's going to get so many opportunities, potentially to see Teheran, potentially to see somebody else. But he can do so many different things, and getting all of those at-bats is going to help him maximize that. I don't necessarily see him having some of the upside of some other hitters, but his floor is so high that I think if I'm going to stack the Brewers, which is what I want to do, Yelich has to be a part of that.
Steve, I know you like the Brewers stack as well. Gary, do you think it's a crap pick or what?
No, I think the Brewers stack is a completely viable way to go. I mean, again, when you break it down, on the 10-game, there are more options, obviously, but I think that Milwaukee keeps coming up. Yeah. Cleveland, if you can afford it, keeps coming up, and depending on how you feel about the home road thing with James Shields. And then Boston. I mean, now that we've got this clarity that this game is actually going to get in, or, most likely going to get in, there are just offenses that you really feel inclined to take. And I think, too, if you do want to kind of play around with, we've talked so much about that crucial tier of pitcher tonight on the 10-game slate with Aaron Nola and with Jack Flaherty. If you want to take one of those guys, kind of ignore Trevor Bauer, save about $3,000 doing that, and you still feel comfortable playing one of the guys in the Mets-Marlins game, now you've got all this money to utilize. And,
right.
I would think that, my favorite hitter tonight, regardless of price, and if you do kind of formulate your lineup around that saving money at pitcher, I mean, Jose Ramirez is always a fantastic play, and I think tonight against Shields, you've got someone who has been fantastic against right-handed pitching so far this season as a left-handed hitter, but we've talked so much about Shields. If I do truly feel Shields is going to get rocked, kind of like we were talking about with the Mariners, we're going to see a whole lot of a very bad Chicago White Sox bullpen.
Right.
And regardless of who they throw at him, there's not a bad split that exists for Jose Ramirez this season as a switch hitter. So I think he really does round out a lineup, and he's simultaneously one of the highest floor guys we have, who also has one of the highest ceilings too.
Steve, who are you taking as your top hitter pick tonight?
Yeah, I like Travis Shaw a lot. I mean, both these guys are talking about Yelich and Ramirez, and they're in fantastic spots. Shaw is just under that 5K range, 4,900 tonight versus Atlanta. Julio Teheran. I mean, Alex is talking about the splits there and how bad they are for Teheran. Shaw, like I said earlier, he's a streaky hitter. 420 WOBA, 346 isolated power through the months of August so far. All three of his extra base hits have been home runs so far this month. And then just against right-handed pitching, I mean, his ISO is approaching 300 for the year. For the year, he's approaching 300 isolated power against righties. I mean, if there's going to be a guy who's going to park one against Teheran, this is definitely the guy that can do that. Yelich can do that, but Shaw, a little bit cheaper. I like him a lot in that spot.
So you threw out some names there. Was Ramirez your top pick, or do you have someone else?
No, it's Ramirez. I think that if you want to have a similar tendency.
If you don't want to be wrong, you just pick the best player in fantasy.
JD
yeah,
Martinez.
I think that works.
Yeah,
I think that works.
Put some JD, put some Jose Ramirez.
Look at it's similar.
Actually, Garion has one of these contests where he has like a $50 million salary cap.
I spelt out the exact way to get Jose Ramirez into your lineup.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though. Boston scored 19 runs last night. JD Ramirez did not home run?
No, JD Martinez did not hit a home run. Did
and
crest
yet
100
you
RBI.
worked your way back onto the booth.
I guess that says a lot about my prognostication abilities. They feel like in the long run, I'm a service to the team.
All right, let's talk about the top either team stacks or complete game stacks. And Steve, we'll start with you on this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm going with the Astros here against LeBlanc. My man. I like it, dude.
Wait, LeBlanc.
But, as I said, with Correa in this lineup, they're a much better team against lefties. LeBlanc has been rocked by this team pretty much 4 times that he's faced him, whether it's coming out of the bullpen, whether it's a startup. The Astros don't care. They'll just take care of him no matter what. So I think LeBlanc is going to be out of this game early. Then they'll get some, matchups that aren't as ideal. Maybe they'll get some righties in there. But, you look at guys like Bregman, like Correa. These are just guys that absolutely mash lefties. They've done it already against LeBlanc this year. So I think the Astros, as I mentioned, I don't think they're going to be that looked at because of some of the other extreme splits that they're facing with Milwaukee and going up against Danny Duffy. So I think the Astros can definitely be a team that can sneak through.
Janko, what are you looking for a top team and or game stack?
I mentioned the Brewers a lot now, but on the flip side of that, you do have the Braves going up against Wade Miley, who's given up, I'm just looking at it now to confirm, he's given up 1 home run in his last, 8 starts or something like that. He
feels like it's going to come to an
way
end.
over his head.
It has to at some point, right? And obviously, the Braves don't have, they're lefty heavy, but facing a lefty. But Ozzie Albies, we know it doesn't really matter whether he's facing a lefty or a righty. So I would probably start with him, probably not stacking too much on the Braves side. But overall, this game, very enticing to me.
Well, Johan Camargo has a 397 isolated power against left-handed pitching since, I believe, the beginning of June.
It's incredible.
He, flipped a switch.
Yeah.
It was right around when the Batista thing went down, and there were some beat writers already being like, why did they bring him in? Johan should just be the starting third baseman anyway. And it seemed like he really took that to heart and decided, I'm going to prove this is what's happening. So he's crushed lefties. And he was, even last season, not as great numbers, but the power numbers were fantastic when he hit from the right side of the plate.
And what amazes me, too, is that his salary isn't exceedingly excessive. He hasn't been that expensive at all. And yet his ownership is so low, especially against lefties. And it continues to baffle my mind because it's like, how much production does this guy have to do for people to actually realize, Camargo is a legit option against lefties. Yes, maybe his spot in the batting order isn't ideal.
Was
half
at the fifth
time.
now. It's
he's
usually
been
7th
moving
or 8th.
up, but it has been 7th or 8th, and I think that's what shies away a lot of people. But, even talking about Harrison Bader earlier, he's amazing against lefties, but because he bats 9th or 8th, it takes off his, loses a lot of the appeal there. But that's a guy who legitimately can get some production done there.
Yeah.
What are you looking for a stack, Gary?
I've talked a lot about the Indians. Let's keep talking about the Indians for a second. The thing I do like about them is they present 2 drastically different stacking options. You have your I punted pitcher. Now I can afford Jose Ramirez. I can afford Francisco Lindor. Then they have a nice mid-tier, even a bit cheaper. Yan Gomes not being in the lineup tonight, that hurts a little bit. He was a very viable catching option at his price point. But you can still find, your I guess I struggle to say that I necessarily want to play some of the guys who was not
You're
Michael
really
Brantley.
convincing me.
That's fair. But again, Yonder Alonso at $4,000, Michael Brantley at $4,600, I believe he is. And then you've got Greg Allen, it's tough because he's 3-4, he's batting 9th, but even the rollover effect. Allen might not get 4 plate appearances in this game, but when he does come to the plate against a gas can, essentially, if he's on base, we start this thing over again, and he's got run-scoring potential and stolen base potential as well. So I think there are ways to construct the Indians stack that fits your lineup, which is nice. They're versatile.
The tough thing about the Indians for me is that this is not a smash spot for them. We've talked about it before. How many times have we tried stacking against James Shields? And it's just not gone how we expected.
Because it's probably a big game.
If you're right. Every game for James Shields is a big game.
Well,
nowadays.
it is now because if he doesn't have a good game, he's out of baseball.
But it's truly Shields,
that was the case.
Shields has just been having this year where it's just he continues to baffle. He hasn't been the gas can that he has been. It's always been go against James Shields because we'll get about 3 or 4 home runs off of him, but he's been limiting the home runs. So that's the only reason I worry about the Indians, because they're so expensive against a guy that's really particularly hasn't been pitching too bad this season.
Again, it's an expectations thing too. We look at Shields' numbers, and he's got an ERA in the mid-4s, a FIP in the mid-4s. He's allowing more than a home run per inning, and we go, oh, that's pretty good because you're James Shields. He's still not good, and he still blows up on occasion. It's just he hasn't blown up every single start. So now we're applauding him for yay, you're sometimes not the worst pitcher in baseball. Congratulations. Our perception gets muddled a little bit when someone's just not been the worst guy in baseball.
Well, we talked about stacks that you like individually for each team, but if we're just looking at it from a pure numbers perspective, and we're looking at implied totals for games or even for teams, what are the games that you think that just you should be objectively be targeting with all things being equal?
Milwaukee is probably the one.
Yeah.
They have a 9.5 total tonight. That's the second highest total on the slate, on the 6-game slate, behind Boston. It's also behind Coors. But, that's a little fishy at Coors because, again, I don't mind the pitching matchup in that game necessarily.
Yeah, it's just out of, I guess, tradition that
Yeah,
Coors is up there because it is what it is. And then, Boston, Baltimore. We are getting continued reports that are at least more optimistic. I don't, obviously nothing's a guarantee, but
what
certainly
if it was a guarantee?
It sounded like it was. That was, he seems pretty confident, and I'll take that. But then that's another team. It's like the Indians, where because they're sitting Benintendi and they're sitting Moreland, you have other options that you can attack this. You can pay up for Betts or Martinez. or you go for a more value look there, and you still have a lot of exposure against a very bad pitcher. No matter which side you're stacking on that in that game, you're going up against a bad pitcher. So, it's maybe people haven't been paying as much attention to the weather reports as we have. They just heard a potential delay. All right, and then move on somewhere else.
Cross it off the list.
Yeah,
I'll never come back to it. I don't think these guys are doing that. But
No, I think
I would guarantee that they are not.
Janko brought this up earlier, though. It's just like we're so focused on Boston, rightfully so. But yeah, this is not a great spot for Boston pitchers either. Like, this is going to be a bullpen game.
Second game of a doubleheader.
Second game of a doubleheader. Like, we could see some names we don't exactly recognize coming out of the Boston pen tonight. And, Baltimore, they sold off almost every viable bat they had. But over the last 2 weeks, as I mentioned, this is technically speaking the worst team Boston could face because they can't face themselves in terms of offensive potency. Like, they've had the second best WRC plus the last 14 days. And you look at some of the values you can get at the top of this lineup. Jace Peterson leading off at 3-2. It is versatile. You can play him at third or you can play him in the outfield.
Yep.
We talked about Jonathan Villar, Adam Jones, Trey Mancini's hitting cleanup 3-7. Chris Davis, 3-2.
So
we
do
know
you
he can hit
take?
a home run.
Yeah, we talked about doubling up on high-price pitching, which is maybe more of a cash game type option. Do you do that approach at pitching and then a GPP style approach going with an Orioles stack there?
I don't know if I'm going like major 4-5 player stack, but I think an Orioles mini stack. I think that's super on the table.
And you want to talk about a value play too. I mean, we've been crapping on Chris Davis all season long, but if you look over his last 10 games, he's just under 10 DK fantasy points in that span. I mean, granted, he's either going to hit a home run or he's going to strike out, and you're going to get a big offer from him. But for a cheap value play at first base for likely very low ownership in a game that's going to have, pitchers you wouldn't normally see on a game because we're playing in that doubleheader, I think Davis is someone that you could consider. You're not going to feel great about it. You're not going to go, all right, I got Chris Davis in my first base position. But, hey, you know what? If he hits a bomb, you're going to get that low ownership points that you really need in these type of big tournaments.
All right, we're going to find out some of your guys' contrarian picks here on this 10-game slate in a second, though. But first, we need to go to Adam Coffin, who's standing by with Club Love qualifier for the 2018 Draftkings Fantasy Baseball World Championships. Check it out.
I'm thrilled to be joined here by Steve. You may know him as Club Love. I've been talking to this man a couple of times throughout the weekend, and you said we had a special outfit coming. You weren't messing around.
It came from Spain. It's a little bit tight, but
it's a special order.
Yes,
for this.
Exactly. I had it shipped overnight, and somebody brought it here. So I just figured, with my name being Club Love, that I had to wear something. So hopefully it'd knock it out of the park. So
Now listen, I'm not supposed to talk to you about money, but I have to know what this suit costs.
Let's just say hopefully tonight I make enough to pay for what the suit costs.
Now
the shipping costs more than the suit did, but
is that right?
Yes.
The other thing that's great is that we were talking about this at the Yankees game. On the way to the Yankee game, you were pooped on by a pigeon twice.
That is
correct. But you ended up finishing great. You finished third in the showdown contest last night, and so you were saying, good luck charm. You got to wear. You got the shirt
That
on.
would be correct. Yes.
This still got the shirt.
I'm sorry, but if you guys smell something,
it's pigeon poop.
It's pigeon poop.
Yeah.
But sorry, I'm superstitious, and I had to at least wear the shirt. So, but tonight, if we do well, I'm going to keep it and never wash it. I'll just frame it and put it up somewhere. So.
All right. In the spirit of superstition, though, I mean, you got the drink. You seem relaxed. How you feeling? Like lineup set, no tweaking.
Lineup is set. I was a little worried about one game with the weather, but and my theory is there's too much at risk to have a game go canceled. So I stayed away, and I'm drinking and relaxing. There's nothing I can do at this point. I'm just ready for it to start and see where the chips fall.
What do you suppose the mentality is once everything starts, lineups are finalized, and you're just enjoying the night because you're here for the first time?
This is my first time. I hope it's not the last, but thank
right.
you guys at DraftKings. Everything has been over the top. So now my goal is to get back in this again, either myself or my buddy Jim. So we partner. He's got a lineup in, I got one in. So hopefully we see you guys back here.
Yeah, look, don't thank us. Thank you. I want to see this suit every single year. Best of luck.
Thanks.
To you.
Yeah, hopefully it fits a little better next time. I'll be a little smaller. So thank you guys.
All right, good luck.
All right, thanks.
Back with you at the 2018 Draftkings Fantasy Baseball World Championships live from New York City. I'm Pat Mayo. Gary Thorne is still here. He has yet to be fired.
It's true.
Even though you're getting your picks wrong from last night. I totally forgot about that. So you're lucky, sir.
That's on you.
When we get into it tonight, you better be right. That's all I'm saying. Well, same with you, Steve Buchanan, and you, Alex Jankowski.
I got my home run pick last night.
Oh, so you're safe for years.
That's true.
So you're good to go here. But I want to know about some contrarian picks. We've talked about your top picks, the top stacks, the obvious plays everyone's looking at. People know about those plays. What are the plays no one knows about? Janko, who are you going with?
Well, my contrarian pick was Chris Davis. We then talked about him quite a bit, actually. Bukes did a better job convincing you to draft him than I did. So I'm just going to bring up a team that maybe we haven't brought up yet at all, but still in a very good spot, and that's the Philadelphia Phillies on the road in San Diego. Obviously, we really like Aaron Nola in that spot pitching, but going up against Walker Lockett, who he doesn't have a big sample size to go off of, but what we have to go off of is very, very bad, especially when it comes to left-handed hitters, OPS well over 1,200. Was hoping Justin Bour could get into the lineup for this game. Still listed as a Marlin. I think it has something to do with the the post-deadline acquisition, getting him through waivers and stuff like that. But okay, so then we'll just go Carlos Santana there at first base, and even if he's not batting from the left side, Rhys Hoskins can't be really ever in a bad position. So I like the Phillies too, especially we focus so much on the 6 games that we're going to be talking a lot about here. But when it opens up to 10. It opens up to Coors, but this is another spot that I like in addition on this 10-game slate.
Gary, where are you looking at? Someone off the board.
Well, I think we brought up this name slightly earlier, but you were saying how we're so focused on Milwaukee, we're not really looking at the other side of that equation. And for the Braves, I think,
Jeff
Ozzie
Francoeur.
Albies, yeah, Jeff Francoeur. Ozzie Albies has kind of had a roller coaster season in terms of his exposure against left-handed pitching. He came out of the gates on fire in April and March. This guy has a 700-plus isolated power against left-handed pitching.
That good.
Since then, it's down below 125. So if anyone who's been paying attention, I mean, the numbers, just if you look at the basic splits, still look all right against left-handed pitching for Ozzie Albies. He actually hasn't hit lefties at all in about 4 months. But tonight, the specific matchup he has against Wade Miley, who I just don't trust. I don't believe this is the Wade Miley that now exists, and we have to, address
Embrace
Wade
it.
Miley as someone who's actually viable on a slate like this. He throws his cutter more than any other pitch. He's got a 5-pitch mix, but he does lean on his cutter more than most guys. Throws it about 34% of the time. Albies this season against cutters has a 571 isolated power. He loves that pitch. He used to love lefties. Not so much lately, but my hope is that people are kind of taking that overriding narrative of recency where he just hasn't hit lefties in so long that we don't need to really use him tonight, despite the fact he's facing Wade Miley and he's near the top of the order. And his price point is now just $4,500.
Steve, you got anyone better as a contrarian pick?
I like Walker Buehler a lot at Coors Field, 7,700. Walker, Texas Ranger, baby. I mean, I really think he's going to have
He plays for the Los Angeles Dodgers, just so everyone knows.
I know. I had to sneak that in there, though. But I think he's going to have low ownership tonight because of the perception he's in Coors Field. We keep looking at some of these games. I mean, look at the Pirates series with the Rockies. I mean, we saw more pitching duels than we saw offensive barrages out there. And it's I feel like we've been on this 2-week run now where the pitching options have been more attractive to Coors Field than actually stacking the Rockies or the teams that they're facing. He's got some good strikeout potential, a 9.5 K9 on the season. Colorado, they keep striking out against righties, 22.6 K percentage, which is the 7th highest in the league, so that potential is still there. The Rockies really haven't been crushing the ball like they have been, especially against right-handed pitching. Against lefties, that is their jam right there. Trevor Story crushes them. Nolan Arenado, when he's healthy, he's been doing the same. But righties have really been giving them some issues this season. So I think Walker is someone at 7,700. If you're looking to fit in some of those large bats, I feel like that's a play that's going to go under the radar. People aren't going to really consider it because of the Coors Field factor, but I think he's absolutely in play here.
Well, we see everyone behind us. They're getting ready for, the games to actually get started. That's probably the worst part at this point is the anticipation. You got your lineups in. You don't want to sit around for the last 10 minutes being like, I need to tinker just one more time.
Again, a way that my paper balloting system would help.
Yeah, it would solve all these problems.
You set it and forget it. Yeah.
But now you're sitting down. Everyone's taking it all in, getting themselves ready, and we'll be back to talk about the Fantasy Baseball World Championship and that 6-game slate and some of the strategy that may go along behind it. But first, we have Maria. She's out with Adam Brown right now, so check it out.
I'm here with one of our qualifiers, Adam Brown. His username is AdamBrown24, and you might remember from earlier in the program, we had Adam Levitan on the show, and you're his friend.
I thought so.
Now, he told us that you might be unofficially the biggest dog on tonight's slate. Do you agree with that?
I guess I do now, but you're the dog.
So how do you feel about that?
I feel pretty good. I feel good. One entry. Let's roll.
No nerves?
No nerves at all. I set my lineup last night at Westside Tavern when the prices came out.
So, and you haven't touched your lineup since?
I did. I tinkered a little, but yeah, feel good.
Did you tinker a little based on the weather events of this evening?
No, not at all.
No overthinking? You seem very cool, a little too cool. It's like a little suspect.
No, not suspect at all. I roll with my guys, and that's it.
Now, have you ever been involved in an event like this?
No, never. This is the coolest thing ever. Very cool.
Really enjoyable experience so far?
For sure, yeah.
I notice you have sort of an entourage with you. They seem to be having a good time.
Yeah, they want me to say to trust the process. That's what I do. So, trust it.
Trust the process for sure, and even the loser wins some money tonight, right?
Yeah, that's not the goal though. So let's just take $500K and helicopter back to Philly.
I like that mindset, the winning mindset. The goal is to win. You play to win the game. Sure. But can I get in on the helicopter ride?
Sure, you're in. Yeah, you're definitely in.
Right answer. All right, Adam Brown, 24. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Good luck.
All right.
Guys?
Welcome back to the 2018 Draftkings Fantasy Baseball World Championships, live from New York. Pat, Gary, and Steve, and Alex all here for another 10 minutes or so. We'll be wrapping around 7 p.m. when the game's locked, so we can go walk around and see what's going on and see who is going to win that $500,000 grand prize going to the winner of tonight's contest. And you can follow along. If you go to the DraftKings Twitter page right now, there'll be a link up there as soon as lineups go, and you can follow along and sweat it out with everyone else. But let's have a bit of a chat before we go. We talked a lot about this 10-game slate, but let's talk about the 6-game slate that everyone here is playing. And how would your strategy change? Like, you keep mentioning Aaron Nola, and the fact that he's not a part of this slate, would that just destroy your night, basically?
It wouldn't destroy my night. I'm going to be able to get over it, I think.
I don't know if you will.
It's tough. But it is that top-tier pitcher is so interesting to me because Trevor Bauer is underpriced, I feel, at $12,500.
Yeah,
and Charlie Morton might be a bit overpriced at $11,500. And if you're starting to play game theory here and starting to think where everyone else is going, do you say I'll go down the $1,000 to Morton and find somewhere else that, that's your differentiator right there. Doesn't really leave you a ton more, but maybe then you go down to Jack Flaherty at 96. But to me, it's so tight right there in that top with Trevor Bauer just being in such a good spot that you're going to have to find elsewhere, I think, to differentiate yourself.
Steve, just in general, what are the key differences between a 10-game slate and a 6-game slate? Now it's not even like a 5.5 game slate; it's like 5.83 game slate. If the weather, does hold itself up, it's inching up.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, the thing is too is that I think pitching is at such a premium, the lower games that you get there, because if you're not going to hit on the pitcher, you're very likely going to be playing a lot of catch-up because you have a lot of catch-up from your hitters to get there. And that's why, you bring up Charlie Morton saying he might be a little bit overpriced. Well, I look at it, he's $11,500. Is there a chance that he can hit 3x value? That's going to be kind of tough. But looking at the 2 starts that he's had against them already, he's just under 30 DK fantasy point average in that span. Now, in the same breath, we've talked about how the Mariners are not striking out much at all at this point, so that obviously is a deterrent, but now I'm kind of thinking about that a little bit more. Maybe Morton's a little more enticing than I originally thought. The numbers definitely aren't there because we said he hasn't been striking out as much, but now we're looking at what he's done against them before, 16 strikeouts through 13 innings. That's pretty damn good there. So it's one of those things that I'm really thinking about, am I going to go high on the pitching or am I going to go low on the pitching? Because that's going to really dictate how you're going to build the rest of your lineup.
Yeah, when we shrink this slate, Gary, what would be the first thing that you would just change completely in strategy, or would you at all?
Well, I think one thing and one option we talked about possibly utilizing in the 10-game slate was maybe using Flaherty and Aaron Nola, and that still afforded you the ability to be somewhat flexible, especially if you throw Austin Barnes in there at catcher, with what you do with the rest of your lineup. There isn't really an avenue to get 2 top-end pitchers tonight unless you're punting even upwards of 4 positions. There's just no money left on the table if you're using, not even considering a Morton Bauer scenario, which I don't think anyone's going to. That would shock me if I saw that tonight.
Oh, we'll wait and see here in 10 minutes to see what's going on.
We will know the answers soon. But I think the elimination of that facet, no one's really looking at this mid-tier, and I'm not necessarily saying there's many sexy options.
No, it sounds like exactly what you're saying.
Well, I look at
so many sexy options.
No, I don't think there are many.
Dan Straley, handsome fella.
Well, Straley I would consider, I guess, the lowest mid-tier option there is. And we've already talked about this. I think Straley will be a magnet tonight. I think people are going to like Straley. Maybe to a lesser extent, they'll like Oswalt. I like Oswalt because of that. I think really when you line these two guys up, I don't see much difference. I guess there is a little bit more strikeout upside with a guy like Straley, as you've talked about. But again, the way this lineup has been constructed for the Marlins, a bad lineup any way you slice it. Like, you could pick the names out of a hat. Only 3 left-handed batters in here. He does have a slightly above average strikeout rate, 22% against those right-handed batters. He's been really good across his last 4 starts. I mean, the numbers get a little muddled because of his first 3 appearances in a Mets uniform, but just a 235 WOBA to opponents over those last 4 games, We only need 15, 16, 17 points out of this guy, and he's playing the Marlins. Like, I know the Marlins haven't been nearly as bad as we think they were going to be to start the season, but you're telling me win expectancy isn't on the table for Oswalt tonight? Like, it's 100% there.
And we talk so much about Milwaukee and Atlanta bats. If you want to go right? Does Wade Miley keep up this run that he's been on? Does Julio Teheran, is he on the top of the roller coaster now?
Well, the interesting thing with Teheran, like the old school mentality and book on Teheran, aside from the lefty thing, was that you can't use Teheran when he's in Atlanta. And last season that held through even with this change in stadium. But as we've mentioned on shows this weekend, that's not really the case anymore at SunTrust. I mean, it's been one of the worst offensive fields in baseball for left-handed hitters, and his numbers this season at home are actually better than his numbers on the road. So, I mean, I wouldn't feel necessarily comfortable using Teheran because, you know, not only are there many left-handed bats in this Milwaukee lineup, but they're good left-handed bats. But he is going to be someone who's probably a contrarian play.
So we've just spelled out a whole bunch of situations that are theoretical. Here's what you can do. Now, none of you 3 are in the live final, for shame. So if people can hear this sitting back there, they probably want to do the opposite of what you guys say. And that's probably the move to go with. But, Steve, if it was you, how would you be constructing your lineup tonight for this 6-game slate?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to try to jam Bauer in my lineup. I mean, if you want to talk about consistency, a high strikeout upside, I mean, he's the guy tonight. I mean, the White Sox over the past 2 weeks have the highest K percentage of any team in the major leagues, and you're going against one of the guys who has the highest K percentages as a pitcher going against them tonight. I mean, that should just be a strikeout city spot there. I mean, he should be in a matchup where he should exceed 30 points tonight. So I got to try to jam him in there. I think the Bauer-Straley combination is going to be a popular one, but I think I would have to go that way and just get those guaranteed points.
Alex?
Yeah, I'd be going chalk at pitcher. If Morton was facing almost anyone else, you know, I would see the upside, but he's going to need a couple of those strikeouts just to hit his floor and then go from there. So I like Bauer, and I mentioned Straley as well, and then I'll differentiate myself at bats. And
so when we do talk about the bats, though, if there is the position to pay up for, like, is it a specific player and that's all it is, or is there a position you'd want to attack tonight?
I don't know if there's anyone in particular. I think just the way Boston sets up right now, obviously that's always the spot you want to start to pay up if you're thinking about it. But Milwaukee, if you are going to go lefty heavy with Milwaukee, you are going to have to pay a little bit to fit in more than just Christian Yelich. You know, if you want to also then get in Thames or Moustakas, you're going to have, you don't have to go super scrub at pitcher, but you are going to have some money there to spend. And that's just kind of how the way you have to look at it. But I like also, we brought up St. Louis a couple times. Also, another spot there that at least some of those right-handed pitchers going up against Danny Duffy.
All right, so Gary, what would you be doing here?
Well,
are you doing the Bauer Straley and being on your way?
Well, I like Bauer, and I try to differentiate myself with Oswalt. I don't know how much of differentiation that's actually going to be, so maybe this does come down to how you utilize your bats. And I do think there are certain
White Sox bats. Just play everyone against Bauer. Everyone's going to have Bauer. You play the other side of it and win all the money.
I mean, you can't predict
or
baseball,
lose all
as
the
they
money.
Say,
but you have a good time.
You can't lose all the money, though. I think last place still.
Yeah, you'll still get 10 grand.
Cash, so
you're saying I'm win. You're saying I'm a winner either way. Perfect.
There you go. I think that
this is why I'm awful at this, by the way.
When you look at stacks, though, that kind of correlate themselves with how people would be paying up at pitcher, using Bauer and then having to save some money with those bats, like the Cardinals really do fill that archetype. They allow you to do that, so they're probably going to be pretty popular in that same right, where if you do just want to throw caution to the wind and say, I want these Red Sox bats now that we not definitely, but are pretty sure that this game is getting in. I mean, I feel like the exposure to Betts, the exposure to J.D. Martinez, not going to be very heavy tonight. So that is an avenue that I would explore, but I think if it really came down to it, if I had one lineup, I would want Bauer in it. I would go with Corey Oswalt. and then I would kind of fill out the rest of my lineup with, your Jed Jerkos, your Yonder Alonsos, around that $4,000 tier.
All right, we're almost out of time, so I need one lock for tonight from each of you. Gary, and who is it?
I'm going to go with Ozzie Albies again. I think his success against the cutter, I think he's going to have a low ownership tonight because of the recent struggles against lefties. I like him a lot.
He needs to cut it, is what he needs to do.
Sure.
Steve.
Oh, boy. I'm going to go with the Astros stack tonight.
Alex?
Are we 10-game or 6-game?
6-game.
All right, so no, not named Aaron Nola. Then I'll have to go Trevor Bauer.
But it would be Aaron Nola if it was the 10-game set.
I really like Aaron Nola. Yeah.
All right. Alex Jankowski, thank you for being here. Steve Buchanan, Gary and Thornton. You can check out all of their work on DK Live. And as you can see behind me, everyone is almost ready for lineup lock, so it's gonna be a good time. A lot of sweating gonna be happening. Although the AC in here is pretty good.
Well
so
air conditioned.
until it starts heating up like a few hours.
You're
from
gonna
now.
be sweating quite a bit.
I'm gonna be sweating. No, I'm a sweaty guy to begin with. But either way, you can follow along. If you go to the DraftKings Twitter page, you can follow along with the DraftKings Fantasy Baseball World Championship live final. Sweat along with everyone else here. Plus, we'll be back live at the very end of the contest to recap everything and try to figure out who's going to end up with the big prize and how they did it. For everyone here, I'm Pat Mayo. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.